梁歌制作，我这一辈子，作者老舍。第一段，我幼年读过书，虽然不多，可是足够读《七侠五义》与《三国志演义》什么的。我记得好几段《聊斋》，到如今还能说得很齐全动听。
Production by Liang Gu, author of My Life, Lao She. The first paragraph. I read a lot of books when I was young, although not many, but enough to read the 7 Heroes and 5 Righteousnesses and the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. I remember quite a few of the stories, and I can still speak them perfectly and beautifully to this day.
不但听的人都夸奖我的记性好，连我自己也觉得应该高兴。可是我并念不懂《聊斋》的原文，那太深了。我所记得的几段都是由小报上的评讲《聊斋》念来的，把原文变成白话。
Not only did everyone who listened praise me for my good memory, but I also felt that I should be happy. However, I didn't understand the original text of Liao She, which was too profound. The few paragraphs I remembered were all read from the tabloids, comments on Liao She, turning the original text into vernacular.
又添上些逗哏打趣，实在有个意思。我的字写的也不坏，拿我的字和老年间衙门里的公文比一比，论个儿的匀式，墨色的光润，与行列的齐整，我实在相信我可以做个很好的笔帖式。
Adding some funny jokes, it's really interesting. My handwriting isn't bad either. Comparing my calligraphy with the official documents in the Yamen when I was old, I really believe that I can make a good writing style, in terms of the regularity of the characters, the smoothness of the ink, and the neatness of the lines.
自然我不敢高攀，说我有写奏折的本领，可是眼前的通常公文是准保能写到好处的。凭我认字与写的本事，我本该去当差。当差虽不见得一定能增光耀祖。
Naturally, I don't dare to claim that I have the ability to write memorials, but the ordinary official documents in front of me are guaranteed to be good. With my ability to read and write, I should have been working as an errand. Being on the job may not necessarily bring honor to one's ancestors.
但是至少也比做别的事更体面些。况且呢，差事不管大小，多少总有个升腾。我看见不止一位了，官职很大，可是那笔字还不如我的好呢，连句整话都说不出来。这样的人既能做高官，
But at least it's more respectable than doing anything else. Besides, no matter how big or small the errand is, there is always a certain amount of improvement. I saw more than one of them. They had high official positions, but their handwriting was not as good as mine. They couldn't even form a complete sentence. Such people can become high officials.
我怎么不能呢？可是当我15岁的时候，家里教我去学徒，五行八作，行行出状元，学手艺原不是什么滴答的事，不过比较当差稍差点劲儿罢了。学手艺一辈子逃不出手艺人去。
Why can't I? However, when I was 15 years old, my family taught me to become an apprentice. He has 5 elements and 8 works, and he is the best in each. Learning a craft is not a low-level thing, but it is a little less exciting than working as an errand. If you learn a craft, you will never escape being a craftsman in your life.
即使能大发财源，也高不过大官不是。可是我并没和家里闹别扭，就去学徒了。15岁的人自然没有多少主意，况且家里老人还说学满了艺，能挣上钱就给我说亲事。在当时
Even if you can make a lot of money, you won't be as high as a high official, right? But I didn't have any trouble with my family, so I went to be an apprentice. Naturally, a 15-year-old person doesn't have many ideas. Besides, The old man in the family also said that if he mastered the art and could earn money, he would propose marriage to me. At that time,
我想象着结婚必是件有趣的事，那么吃上2-3年的苦，而后大人似的去耍手艺挣钱，家里再有个小媳妇，大概也很下得去了。我学的是裱糊匠，在那太平年月，裱匠是不愁没饭吃的。
I imagined getting married would be fun. So, after 2 or 3 years of hard work, and then practicing crafts to make money like an adult, and having a little daughter-in-law at home, it would probably be pretty good. I studied as a paper framer. In those peaceful years, the framers did not have to worry about having food to eat.
那时候死一个人不像现在这么省事，这可并不是说老年间的人要翻来覆去的死好几回，不干脆的一下子断了气。我是说，那时候死人丧家要拼命的花钱。
At that time, dying was not as easy as it is now. This does not mean that people in old age should die over and over again or simply die all at once. I mean, in those days, when people died and their families were bereaved, they had to spend a lot of money.
一点不惜力气与金钱的奖牌场，就拿与名医铺有关系的事来说吧，就得花上老些个钱。人一断气，马上就得去糊道头车。现在连这个名词儿，也许有好多人不晓得了。紧跟着便是接三。
No effort or money is spared to show off. Take things related to Ming-Yi shop as an example. It will cost a lot of money. As soon as a person dies, he immediately has to reverse the car. Now, many people may not even know this term. Followed closely by jiasan.
必定有些烧火，车叫骡马，蹲香伶人，引魂幡、菱花等等。要是害月子病死的，还必须另糊一头牛和一个鸡罩。赶到17念经，又得葫芦裤、金山银山、尺头元宝、4季衣服、4季花草、古玩陈设。
There must be something to burn alive: carriages, sedans, mules and horses, piers and boxes, soul-inducing flags, spiritual flowers, etc. If someone dies of confinement disease, they must also paste a cow and a chicken cover. When I rush to recite sutras on the 17th, I have to buy the storehouse, the gold and silver mountains, the ingots on the head of the ruler, the clothes of the 4 seasons, the flowers and plants of the 4 seasons, and the antiques and furnishings.
各样木器，及至出殡，只停指架之外，还有许多烧活，至不济也得弄一对童儿举着。5七烧伞，60天糊船桥。一个死人到60天后，才和我们裱糊匠脱离关系。1年之中
Various wooden utensils. When it comes to the funeral, in addition to the paper pavilions and paper stands, there are many burning objects, and even if they don't work, they have to get a pair of children to hold them. Umbrellas were burned on May 7th, and ship bridges were burned on 60 days. It takes 60 days for a dead person to break away from us, the paper framers. During the year.
死那么10来个有钱的人，我们便有了吃喝。裱糊匠并不专伺候死人，我们也伺候神仙。早年间的神仙不像如今玩的这样寒碜，就拿关老爷说吧，早年间每到6月24，
If a dozen rich people die, we will have food and drink. Paper makers don't just serve the dead, we also serve the gods. In the early years, the gods were not as shabby as they are today. Take Mr. Guan as an example. In the early years, every June 24th,
人们必给他胡黄幡宝盖、马铜马匹和7星大旗什么的。现在 几乎没有人再惦记着关公了。遇上闹天花，我们又得为娘娘们忙一阵。9位娘娘得胡9顶轿子，红马黄马各1匹。
People will give him yellow flags, precious canopies, stable boys and horses, and 7-star banners. Now, almost no one cares about Guangdong anymore. When that smallpox breaks out, we have to be busy with the ladies again. The 9 empresses had to make 9 sedan chairs, 1 red horse and 1 yellow horse each.
9份凤冠霞帔，还得预备斗哥哥斗姐姐们的袍带靴帽和各样执事。如今医院都失重牛痘，娘娘们无事可做，裱糊匠也就陪着他们闲起来了。此外还有许许多多的还愿的事。
Jilfen Fengguan Shepe also has to prepare the robes, boots, hats, and various butlers for brother and sister. Nowadays, the hospitals are administering cowpox vaccinations, so the ladies have nothing to do, so the paper posters accompany them to relax. In addition, there are many things to pay your wish.
都要糊点什么东西，可是也都随着破除迷信没人再提了。年头真是变了啊！除了伺候神与鬼外，我们这行自然也为活人做些事。这叫做白活，就是给人家糊顶棚。早年间没有洋房。
There is something to be confused with, but as superstitions have been eliminated, no one mentions it anymore. How things have changed over the years. In addition to serving gods and ghosts, our line of work also naturally involves doing things for living people. This is called working in vain, which is to make a roof for others. In the early years, there were no bungalows.
没遇到搬家、娶媳妇或别项喜事，总要把房间糊得丝白落地，好显出焕然一新的气象。那大富之家，连春秋2季糊窗子也雇用我们。人是一天穷似一天了，搬家不一定糊棚顶。
Whenever it comes to moving, marrying a wife, or other happy events, the room will always be covered with whitewash to give it a completely new look. That wealthy family even hired us to paper their windows in spring and autumn. People are getting poorer day by day, and moving does not necessarily mean covering the roof.
而那些有钱的呢，房子改为洋式的，棚顶抹灰，一劳永逸；窗子改成玻璃的，也用不着再糊上纸或纱。什么都是洋式好，耍手艺的可就没了饭吃。我们自己也不是不努力啊，洋车实行。
As for those who have money, they can change their houses to Western-style houses and plaster the roofs once and for all. If their windows are changed to glass, there is no need to cover them with paper or gauze. Everything is made in Western style, but those who do craftsmanship will have nothing to eat. It's not that we don't work hard ourselves. Foreign cars are in fashion.
我们就照样糊洋车，汽车实行，我们就糊汽车，我们知道改良。可是有几家死了人来糊一辆洋车或汽车呢？年头一旦大改良起来，我们的小改良全算白饶，水大漫不过鸭子去。
We just keep making foreign cars. When cars become popular, we just make cars. We know how to improve. But how many dead people come to cover up a foreign car or automobile? Once major improvements are made in the new year, all our small improvements will be in vain, and the water will overflow and the ducks can't get over it.
有什么法儿呢？第2段，上面交代过了。我若是始终仗着那份手艺吃饭，恐怕就早已饿死了。不过这点本事虽不能永远有用，可是3年的学艺并非没有很大的好处。
What can I do? Second paragraph. It was explained above, if I had always relied on that skill to eat, I would have starved to death long ago. However, although this skill cannot be used forever, 3 years of learning is not without great benefits.
这点好处叫我一辈子享用不尽。我可以撂下家伙，干别的营生去，这点好处可是老跟着我。就是我死后，有人谈到我的为人如何，他们也必须要记得我少年曾学过3年图。
I will never be able to enjoy this benefit in my lifetime. I could quit this guy and go do something else. That benefit would always be with me. Even after my death, if someone talks about my character, they must remember that I was an apprentice for 3 years when I was young.
学徒的意思是一半学手艺，一半学规矩。在出到铺子去的时候，不论是谁也得害怕，铺中的规矩就是委屈。当徒弟的得晚睡早起，得听一切的指挥与实遣，得低三下四的伺候人。
Apprenticeship means learning half the craft and half the rules. When you first go to the shop, no matter who you are, you have to be afraid. The rule in the shop is to be aggrieved. As a disciple, you have to go to bed late and get up early, listen to all orders, and serve others in a humble manner.
饥寒劳苦都得高高兴兴地受着，有眼泪往肚子里咽。像我学艺的所在，铺子也就是掌柜的家，受了师傅的，还得受师母的，加板气。能挺过这么3年，顶倔强的人也得软了。
I had to endure hunger, cold and hard work happily, with tears in my stomach. Like the place where I learned my art, the shop is also the shopkeeper's home. If you accept the responsibility of the master, you must also accept the responsibility of the master's wife. It's a pity. To survive these 3 years, even the most stubborn people have to soften.
顶软和的人也得硬了。我简直的可以这么说，一个学徒的脾性不是天生带来的，而是被板子打出来的，像打铁一样，要打什么东西变成什么东西。在当时正挨打受气的那一会儿。
Even the most gentle people have to be hardened. I can simply say that an apprentice's temperament is not born with it, but is struck with a board. Just like blacksmithing, whatever you want to strike becomes what you want. At that moment when I was being beaten and angry,
我真想去寻死，那种气简直不是人所受得住的。但是现在想起来，这种规矩与调教实在值金子。受过这种排练，天下便没有什么受不了的事了。随便提一样吧，比方说叫我去当兵，好啊。
I really want to seek death. That kind of anger is simply unbearable. However, now that I think about it, this kind of rules and training are worth their weight in gold. After such rehearsal, there is nothing in the world that cannot be endured. Just mention anything, for example, teach me to be a soldier, okay?
我可以做个蛮好的兵。军队的操演有时有会儿，而学徒们是除了睡觉没有任何休息时间的。我抓着功夫去出工，一边蹲着一边就能打个盹儿，因为遇上赶夜活的时候。
I can be a very good soldier. The army's drills sometimes lasted for a while, but the apprentices did not have any rest time except sleeping. I can be a very good soldier. The army's drills sometimes lasted for a while, but the apprentices did not have any rest time except sleeping. I took the time to go out and take a nap while squatting, because it was time to catch up on night work.
我一天一夜只能睡上3、4点钟的觉。我能一口吞下去一顿饭，刚端起饭碗，不是师傅喊，就是师娘叫，要不然便是有照顾主来订活，我得恭而敬之的招待。
I could only sleep between 3 and 4 o'clock a day and a night. I can swallow a whole meal in one mouthful. As soon as I picked up the rice bowl, I would be greeted by either the master or the mistress.
并且细心听着师傅怎样论活讨价钱。 不把饭整吞下去怎办呢？这种排练教我遇到什么苦处都能硬挺，外带着还是挺和气。读书的人，据我这粗人看，永远不会懂得这个。
And listen carefully to how the master discusses work and bargains. What should I do if I don't swallow the meal whole? This kind of rehearsal has taught me that I can stand firm no matter what adversity I encounter, and still be kind on the outside. People who read books, as far as I am ignorant, will never understand this.
现在的洋学堂里开运动会，学生跑上2个圈，就仿佛有了汗马功劳一般。呵，又是搀着，又是抱着，往大腿上拍火酒，还闹脾气，还坐汽车。这样的公子哥儿哪懂得什么叫做规矩，哪叫排练呢？
Nowadays, there are sports meets in foreign schools. When students run 2 laps, it feels like they have made a great contribution. Drink. He was being supported, held, slapped with fire wine on his thigh, lost his temper, and even rode in a car. How can such a young man know what rules are and what rehearsal is?
话往回来说，我所受的苦处给我打下了做事任劳任怨的底子。我永远不肯闲着，做起活来永不晓得闹脾气、耍别扭。我能和大兵们一样受苦，而大兵们不能像我这么和气。
Looking back, the hardships I suffered have laid the foundation for me to work hard without complaint. I will never be idle, and I will never lose my temper or act awkward when I work. I can suffer like the soldiers, and the soldiers we can't be as kind as me.
再拿件实事来证明这个吧。在我学成出师以后，我和别的耍手艺的一样，为表明自己是凭本事挣钱的人，第一我先买了根烟袋，只要一闲着便捻上一袋吧唧着，仿佛很有身份，慢慢的。
Let's take another fact to prove this. After I graduated from school, I was just like other craftsmen. In order to show that I was a person who made money based on my skills, I first bought a cigarette bag and used it whenever I had free time. Twist a bag of bar and chew it, as if you are very distinguished, slowly.
我又学了喝酒，时常弄2盅猫尿咂着嘴抿几口。嗜好就怕开了头，会了一样就不难学第2样，反正都是个玩意罢了。这可也就出了毛病。我爱烟爱酒，原本不算什么稀奇的事。
I learned to drink again, often taking 2 cups of cat urine and smacking my lips. It's hard to get started with a hobby. Once you learn one thing, it's not difficult to learn the next one. It's just a hobby anyway. There is something wrong with this. I love smoking and drinking, which was not a strange thing at first.
大家伙都差不多是这样。可是我一来二去的学会了吃大烟。那个年月，鸦片烟不贩丝，非常的便宜。我先是吸着玩，后来可就上了瘾。不久，我便觉出手紧来了。
That's pretty much the case for everyone. However, I learned to smoke heavily over time. In those days, opium was not illegal and very cheap. I smoked it for fun at first, but later I became addicted. Soon, I felt my hands were tightening.
做事也不似先前那么上进了。我并没等谁劝告我，不但戒了大烟，而且把旱烟袋也撅了，从此烟酒不动。我入了里门，入里门，烟酒都不准动，一旦破戒，必走背运。所以我不但戒了嗜好。
I am no longer as motivated to work as before. I didn't wait for anyone to advise me. Not only did I quit smoking, but I also puffed out my dry pipe. From now on, I stopped smoking and drinking. I entered the legacy gate. When entering the monastery, you are not allowed to smoke or drink. Once you break the precept, you will be unlucky. So not only did I quit my hobby,
而且入了里门，备孕在那儿等着我，我怎肯再犯戒呢？这点心胸与硬气，如今想起来还是由学徒得来的。多大的苦处我都能忍受。初一戒烟戒酒，看着别人吸，别人饮，多么难过呢。
Moreover, after entering the sect, bad luck is waiting for me there. How can I be willing to break the precepts again? This bit of heart and toughness, now that I think about it, I got it from my apprentice. I can endure any amount of pain. I quit smoking and drinking in the first year of junior high school. How sad it is to watch others smoke and drink.
心里真像有1000条小虫爬挠那么痒痒处处的难过。但是我不能破戒，怕走备孕。其实备孕不备孕的都是日后的事，眼前的罪过可是不好受啊。硬挺，只有硬挺才能成功。
It feels like there are 1,000 little insects crawling around in my heart, so itchy and painful. But I can't break the precept for fear of being unlucky. In fact, whether you are unlucky or not is a matter of the future. The sin in front of you is not easy to bear. Be tough, and only by being tough can you succeed.
怕走备孕还在其次，我居然挺过来了，因为我学过徒，受过排练呀。提到我的手艺来，我也觉得学徒3年的光阴并没白费了。凡是一门手艺，都得随时改良，方法是死的，运用可是活的。
The fear of being unlucky is another. I actually survived because I was an apprentice and rehearsed. When it comes to my craft, I also feel that the 3 years of my apprenticeship were not in vain. Any craft must be improved at any time. The method is dead, but the application is alive.
30年前的瓦匠讲究会磨砖对缝，做细工而活。现在他得会用洋灰和包厢人造石什么的。30年前的木匠讲究会雕花刻木，现在得会造洋式木器。我们这行也如此。
30 years ago, a bricklayer was very particular about grinding the joints of bricks and doing fine work. Now, he has to be able to use cement and inlay artificial stones. 30 years ago, carpenters were particular about carving and engraving wood, but now they have to be able to make Western-style woodware. The same is true in our industry.
不过比别的行业更活动，我们这行讲究看见什么就能糊什么。比方说，人家落了丧事，教我们糊一桌全席，我们就能糊出鸡鸭鱼肉来。赶上人家死了未出阁的姑娘，教我们糊一全份嫁妆。
But it is more active than other industries. In our industry, we believe that we can blur whatever we see. For example, if someone is having a funeral and they teach us how to cook a whole table, we can cook chicken, duck, and fish. When we catch up with a girl who has died but has not yet left the palace, she teaches us how to pay a full share of the dowry.
不管是48台还是32台，我们便能由粉罐油瓶一直糊到衣橱穿衣镜。眼睛一看，手就能模仿下来，这是我们的本事。我们的本事不大，可是得有点聪明。
Whether it's 48 or 32, we can go from powder cans and oil bottles to the wardrobe mirror. Once the eyes see it, the hands can imitate it. This is our ability. We don't have much ability, but we have to be a little smart.
一个心窟窿的人绝不会成个好裱糊匠。这样，我们做活一边工作也一边游戏，仿佛是我们的成败全仗着怎么把各色的纸调动的合适，这是耍心路的事儿。以我自己说，我有点小聪明。
A person with a hole in his heart will never become a good paper framer. In this way, we are working, and playing at the same time, as if. Our success or failure all depends on how to arrange the various colors of paper appropriately. This is a tricky thing. Speaking for myself, I am a bit clever.
在学徒时候所挨的打，很少是为学不上活来，而多半是因为我有聪明而好调皮不听话。我的聪明也许一点也显露不出来，假若我是去学打铁或是拉大锯，老那么打，老那么拉。
The beatings I received when I was an apprentice were rarely because I couldn't learn, but mostly because I was smart but naughty and disobedient. My intelligence might not be revealed at all, if I were to learn to blacksmith or pull a big saw, always doing this, always doing that.
一点变动没有。幸而我学了裱糊匠，把基本的技能学会了以后，我便开始自出花样，怎么灵巧逼真我怎么做。有时候我白费了许多功夫与材料，而做不出我所想到的东西。
No changes at all. Fortunately, I learned to be a paper framer, and after I learned the basic skills, I started to come up with my own tricks to make them dexterous and lifelike. Sometimes I waste a lot of time and materials and can't make what I want.
可是这更叫我加紧的去揣摩，去调动，非把它做成不可。这个真是个好习惯。有聪明，而且知道用聪明，我必须感谢这3年的学徒，在这3年养成了我会用自己的聪明的习惯。诚然
But this taught me to work harder to figure it out, to mobilize it, and to make it happen. This is really a good habit. I have wisdom and I know how to use it. I must thank my apprenticeship for these 3 years for developing the habit of using my own wisdom. True.
我一辈子没做过大事，但是无论什么事，只要是平常人能做的，我一瞧就能明白个5、6成。我会砌墙、栽树、修理钟表、看皮货的真假、合婚择日，知道5行8作的行话上诀窍，这些。
I have never done anything big in my life, but no matter what it is, as long as it is something that ordinary people can do, I can understand 50% to 60% of it at a glance. I can build walls, plant trees, repair clocks, check the authenticity of leather goods, choose a date for marriage, know the lingo of the 5 elements and 8 works, these things.
我都没学过，只凭我的眼去看，我的手去试验。我有勤苦耐劳与多看多学的习惯，这个习惯是在名医铺学徒3年养成的。到如今我才明白过来，我已是快饿死的人了。
I have never learned anything. I only rely on my eyes to see and my hands to test. I have the habit of hard work and seeing more and learning more. This habit was developed during my 3 years as an apprentice in Mingy's shop. Only now did I realize that I was about to starve to death.
假如我多读上几年书，只抱着书本死啃，像那些秀才与学堂毕业的人们那样，我也许一辈子就糊糊涂涂的下去，而什么也不晓得呢。裱糊的手艺没有给我带来官职和财产。
If I had studied for a few more years and just gnawed at the books, like those scholars and school graduates, I might have been confused all my life and not know anything. The art of paper pasting did not bring me official position or property.
可是它让我活得很有趣，穷，但是有趣，有点人味儿。刚20多岁，我就成为亲友中的重要人物了。不因为我有钱与身份，而是因为我办事细心，不辞劳苦。自从出了师
But it makes my life very interesting, poor, but interesting and a bit human. In my early 20s, I became an important figure among my family and friends. Not because I have money or status, but because I am careful and work hard. Since leaving the division,
我每天在街口的茶馆里等着同行的来约请帮忙。我成了街面上的人，年轻、利落、 懂得场面。有人来约，我便去做活；没人来约，我也闲不住。亲友家许许多多的事都托付我给办。
I wait in the tea house on the street every day for my colleagues to come and ask for help. I became a person on the street, young, neat, and understanding of the scene. When someone comes to make an appointment, I go to work. When no one comes to make an appointment, I can't stay idle. My relatives and friends ask me to handle many things.
我甚至于刚结过婚，便给别人家做媒了。给别人帮忙就等于消遣。我需要一些消遣。为什么呢？前面我已说过，我们这行有2种活，烧活和白活。做烧活是有趣而干净的，白活可就不然了。
I even acted as a matchmaker for other families right after I got married. Helping others is entertainment. I need some distraction. Why? I have said before, there are 2 kinds of work in our industry, burning work and free work. Doing burnt work is fun and clean, but doing free work is not.
糊顶棚自然得先把旧纸撕下来，这可真够受的。没做过的人万也想不到顶棚上会能有那么多尘土，而且是日积月累攒下来的，比什么土都干、细、钻鼻子、撕完3间屋子的棚。
Of course, you have to tear off the old paper to paste the ceiling first, which is really painful. People who have never done it would never imagine that there would be so much dust on the ceiling, and it is accumulated over time. It is drier than any other soil, finer, and can get into your nose. Finish tearing down the shed of 3 rooms.
我们就都成了土鬼。极致扎好了熟秸、糊新纸的时候，新银花纸的面子是又臭又挂鼻子。尘土与纸面子就能叫人得痨病，现在叫做肺病。我不喜欢这种活，可是在街上等工作。
We all became dirt ghosts. When the straw is tied up and new paper is pasted, the new silver flower paper looks smelly and unpleasant. Dust and paper can teach people to suffer from tuberculosis, now called lung disease. I don't like this kind of work. But, waiting for work on the street.
有人来约就不能拒绝，有什么活的干什么活。应下这种活儿，我差不多老在下边才指地指抹江湖，为的是可以不闭上交手，而且可以低着头干活，少吃点土。就是这样，我也得弄一身灰。
If someone comes to make an appointment, you can't refuse it. You have to do whatever work you have. When doing this kind of work, I almost always cut paper and hand it over to apply paste, so that I don't have to handle, and I can work with my head down and eat less dirt. Even so, I have to be covered in ashes.
我的鼻子也得像烟筒。做完这么几天活，我愿意做点别的，变换变换。那么有亲友托我办点什么，我是很乐意帮忙的。再说呢，做烧活吧，做白活吧，这种工作老与人们的喜事或丧事有关系。
My nose also has to be like a chimney. After working for so many days, would like to do something else and change. Well, if any relatives or friends ask me to do something, I will be happy to help. Besides, let's do burning work or free work. This kind of work is always related to people's happy events or funerals.
熟人们找我订活，也往往就手托我去讲别项的事，如婚丧事的搭棚、讲执事、雇厨子、订车马等等。我在这些事儿中渐渐找出乐趣，晓得如何能捏住巧处，给亲友们既办得漂亮，又省些钱。
When acquaintances come to me to book jobs, they often entrust me with other tasks, such as setting up tents for weddings and funerals, organizing butlers, hiring cooks, ordering carriages and horses, etc. I gradually found the joy in these things, and I knew how to find clever ways to do things beautifully for my relatives and friends and save some money at the same time.
不能窝窝囊囊的被人捉了大头。我在办这些事儿的时候，得到许多经验，明白了许多人情，久而久之，我成了个很精明的人，虽然还不到30岁。第3段，由前面所说过的去推测。
You can't be cowardly and get big-headed by others. When I was doing these things, I gained a lot of experience and understood a lot of human relationships. Over time, I became a very shrewd person, even though I am still less than 30 years old. The third paragraph. Let's speculate based on what was said before.
谁也能看出来，我不能老靠着裱糊的手艺挣饭吃。像逛庙会忽然遇上雨似的，年头一变，大家就得往四散里跑。在我这一辈子里，我仿佛是走着下坡路，收不住脚，心里越盼着天下太平。
Everyone can see that I can't always rely on my craft of papering to make a living. Just like when visiting a temple fair and suddenly encountering rain, when the year changes, everyone has to run away. Throughout my life, I seem to be going downhill and I can't stop. The more I long for peace in the world.
身子越往下出溜，这次的变动不使人缓气，一变好像就要变到底。这简直不是变动，而是一阵狂风，把人糊糊涂涂的刮得不知上哪里去了。在我小时候发财的行当与事情。
The body slipped further and further down. This change does not make people feel relieved. Once the change occurs, it seems that it will change to the end. This is not a change at all, but a strong wind, which blows people confused and they don't know where to go. The trades and things that made me rich as a child.
许多都忽然走到绝处，永远不再见面，仿佛掉在了大海里头似的。裱糊这一行虽然到如今还因死巴活的，始终没完全断了气，可是大概也不会再有抬头的一日了。
Many people suddenly come to an end and never see each other again, as if they fell into the sea. Although the paper pasting industry is still alive and well and has never completely died, it probably won't see the light of day again.
我老早的就看出这个来，在那太平的年月，假若我愿意的话，我满可以开个小铺，收2个徒弟，安安顿顿的混2顿饭吃。幸而我没那么办，一年得不到一笔大活。
I saw this early on. In those peaceful years, if I had wanted to, I could have opened a small shop, hired 2 apprentices, and made a living. Fortunately, I didn't do that. You can't get a big job in a year.
只仗着糊一辆车或2间屋子的顶棚什么的，怎能吃饭呢？睁开眼看看，这10几年了，可有过一笔体面的活。我得改行，我算是猜对了。不过，这还不是我忽然改了行的唯一的原因。
How can we eat if we only have to tape up the roof of a car or 2 houses? Open your eyes and see, have you ever had a decent job in the past 10 years or so? I have to change my career. I guessed it right. However, this is not the only reason why I suddenly changed my career.
年头的改变不是个人所能抵抗的，胳膊扭不过大腿去，跟年头较死劲，简直是自己找别扭。可是个人独有的是，往往来得更厉害，他能马上叫人疯了。去投河秘井都不算新奇。
The changes of the year are not something that an individual can resist. His arm cannot twist his thigh, and he is simply looking for trouble by complaining about the change of the year. However, things that are unique to the individual are often more powerful and can drive people crazy immediately. Going into a river to look for a well is nothing new.
不用说把自己的行业放下而去干些别的了。个人的事虽然很小，可是一加在个人身上便受不住。一个米粒很小，教蚂蚁去搬运便很费力气。个人的事也是如此。人活着是胀了一口气。
Needless to say, I put down my career and went to do something else. Although a personal matter is small, it cannot be endured once it is added to an individual. A grain of rice is so small that it takes a lot of effort to teach ants to carry it. The same goes for personal matters. People live by breathing a sigh of relief.
多咱有点事儿，把这口气憋住，人就要抽风。人是多么小的玩意儿呢？我的精明与和气给我带来备孕。乍一听这句话，仿佛是不合情理，可是千真万确，一点不假。
There is something wrong with duozan. If you hold this breath in, you will have convulsions. What little things people are. My shrewdness and kindness bring me bad luck. At first glance, this sentence may seem unreasonable, but it is absolutely true and not false at all.
假若这要不落在我自己身上，我也许不大相信天下会有这宗事。他镜子找到了我，在当时，我差不多真成了个疯子。隔了这么20-30年，现在想起那回事来，我满可以微微一笑。
If this had not happened to me, I might not have believed that such a thing would happen in the world. It found me, at that time, I almost became a madman. After 20 or 30 years, now that I think of that incident, I can smile.
仿佛想起一个故事来似的。现在我明白了，个人的好处不必一定就有利于自己。一个人好，大家都好，这点好处才有用，正是如鱼得水。一个人好，而大家并不都好。
As if remembering a story. Now I understand that what is personally good does not necessarily benefit me. If one person is good, everyone is good. This advantage is useful, just like a fish in water. One person is good, but not everyone is good.
个人的好处也许就是让他倒霉的祸根。精明和气有什么用呢？现在我悟过这点理儿来，想起那件事，不过点点头，笑一笑罢了。在当时，我可真有点咽不下去那口气。那时候我还很年轻啊。
His personal advantage may be his undoing. What's the use of being shrewd and kind? Now that I have understood this, I just nod and smile when I think of it. At that time, I really couldn't swallow that breath. I was still very young at that time.
哪个年轻的人不爱漂亮呢？在我年轻的时候，给人家行人情或办点事，我的打扮与气派，谁也不敢说我是个手艺人。在早年间，皮货很贵，而且不准乱穿。如今晚的人，今天得了马票或奖券。
Which young person doesn't love to be beautiful? When I was young, when I was doing favors or doing things for others, no one would dare to say that I was a craftsman because of my appearance and style. In the early years, leather goods were expensive and not allowed to be worn casually. For example, tonight's person won a lottery ticket or lottery ticket today.
明天就可以穿上狐皮大衣，不管是个15岁的孩子，还是20岁还没刮过脸的小伙子。早年间可不行，年纪身份决定个人的服装打扮。那年月
Tomorrow you can wear a fox fur coat, whether you are a 15-year-old boy or a 20-year-old boy who has never shaved. This was not the case in the early years. Age and status determined one's clothing. That year and month.
在马褂或坎肩上安上一条灰鼠领子，就仿佛是很漂亮阔气。我老安着这么条领子，马褂与坎肩都是轻大段的， 那时候的缎子也不怎么那样结实，一件马褂至少也可以穿上10来年。
Putting a squirrel collar on a mandarin jacket or waistcoat looks very beautiful and luxurious. I always wore such a collar, and my mantle and waistcoat were both made of large green satin. The satin at that time was not that strong, and a mantle could last at least 10 years.
在给人家糊棚顶的时候，我是个土鬼，回到家中一梳洗打扮，我立刻变成个漂亮小伙子。我不喜欢那个土鬼，所以更爱这个漂亮的青年。我的辫子又黑又长，脑门剃得锃光清亮。
When I was laying roofs for people's sheds, I was a country ghost. When I got home and dressed up, I immediately turned into a handsome young man. I don't like that local ghost, so I love this beautiful young man even more. My braids are black and long, and my forehead is shaved smooth.
穿上带灰鼠领子的缎子坎肩，我的确像个人儿。一个漂亮小伙子所最怕的，恐怕就是娶个丑八怪似的老婆吧。我早已有意无意地向老人们透了个口话，不娶倒没什么。
Putting on the satin waistcoat with the chinchilla collar, I do look like a person. What a beautiful young man fears most is probably marrying an ugly wife. I have already told the old people intentionally or unintentionally, it's okay if you don't get married.
要娶就得来个够样的。那时候自然还不实行自由婚，可是已有男女两造对相对看的办法。要结婚的话，我得自己去相看，不能马马虎虎就凭媒人的花言巧语。20岁那年，我结了婚。
If you want to marry, you have to be someone good enough. At that time, free marriage was still practiced from time to time, but there was already a way for men and women to see each other as partners. If I want to get married, I have to see each other myself, and I can't just rely on the matchmaker's rhetoric. When I was 20, I got married.
我的妻比我小1岁，把她放在哪里，她也得算个俏实利落的小媳妇。在订婚以前，我亲眼相看的啊。她美不美，我不敢说，我说她俏实利落，因为这4个字就是我择妻的标准。
My wife is 1 year younger than me. No matter where you put her, she must be a pretty and neat little daughter-in-law. I saw her with my own eyes before we got engaged. I dare not say whether she is beautiful or not. I say she is pretty and neat, because these 4 words are my criteria for choosing a wife.
她要是不够这4个字的格，当初我绝不会点头。在这4个字里，很可以见出我自己是怎样的人来。那时候我年轻、漂亮，做事麻利，所以我一定不能要个笨牛似的老婆。
If she wasn't qualified enough for these 4 words, would never have nodded. In these 4 words, you can see what kind of person I am. At that time, I was young, beautiful, and quick at work, so I must not have a wife who was as stupid as a cow.
这个婚姻不能说不是天配良缘。我俩都年轻，都利落，都个子不高，在亲友面前，我们像一对轻巧的陀螺似的4面8方的转动，招得那年岁大些的人们眼中要笑出一朵花来。
It cannot be said that this marriage is not a match made in heaven. We are both young, neat, and short. In front of our relatives and friends, we are like a pair of light tops, spinning in all directions, making the older people smile like flowers in their eyes.
我俩竞争着去在大家面前显出个人的机警与口才，到处争强好胜，只为叫人夸奖一声我们是一对最有出息的小夫妇。别人的夸奖增高了我俩彼此间的敬爱，颇有点英雄惜英雄。
The 2 of us competed to show off our personal tact and eloquence in front of everyone, and we were always competitive, just to get people to praise us as the most promising young couple. Praise from others has increased our respect and love for each other, and it's quite a bit like a hero cherishing a hero.
好汉爱好汉的劲儿。我很快乐，说实话，我的老人没挣下什么财产，可是有一所房。我住着不用花租金的房子，院中有不少的树木，檐前挂着一对黄鸟。我呢，有手艺，有人缘。
A good man loves his strength. I am very happy, to be honest. My old man has not earned much property, but he has a house. I live in a house that doesn't cost rent. There are many trees in the yard, and a pair of yellow birds hang in front of the eaves. As for me, I have craftsmanship and good connections.
有个可心的年轻女人，不快乐不是自找别扭吗？对于我的妻，我简直找不出什么毛病来。不错，有时候我觉得她有点太野，可是哪个利落的小媳妇不爽快呢？她爱说话，因为她会说。
There is a lovely young woman. Isn't being unhappy just asking for trouble? I can find absolutely nothing wrong with my wife. Yes, sometimes I think she is a little too wild, but what neat little daughter-in-law wouldn't be happy? She loves to talk because she can talk.
她不大躲避男人，因为这正是做媳妇所应享的利益，特别是刚出嫁而有些本事的小媳妇，她自然愿意把做姑娘时的腼腆收起一些，而大大方方地自居为媳妇。这点实在不能算作毛病。
She doesn't avoid men much, because this is the benefit that a daughter-in-law should enjoy, especially a young daughter-in-law who has just married and has some abilities. Naturally, she is willing to put away some of her shyness as a girl, and openly consider herself as a daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law. This really can't be considered a fault.
况且她见了长辈又是那么亲热体贴、殷勤的伺候，那么她对年轻一点的人随便一些也正是理之当然。她是爽快大方，所以对于年老的正像对于年少的都愿表示出亲热周到来。
Moreover, when she meets her elders, she is so kind, considerate, and attentive to her service, so it is natural for her to be more casual with younger people. She is straightforward and generous, so she is as willing to treat the elderly as she is to the young. Indicates the arrival of intimacy week.
我没因为她爽快而责备她过。她有了孕，做了母亲，她更好看了，也更大方了。我简直的不忍再用那个野字。世界上还有比怀孕的少妇更可怜，年轻的母亲更可爱的吗？看她坐在门槛上。
I didn't blame her for being cheerful. She is pregnant and a mother. She is more beautiful and more generous. I simply can't bear to use the word wild again. Is there anyone in the world who is more pitiful than a pregnant young woman, and is there anything more lovely than a young mother? Look at her sitting on the threshold.
露着点胸，给小娃娃奶吃，我只能更爱她，而想不起责备她太不规矩。到了24岁，我已有一儿一女。对于生儿养女，做丈夫的有什么功劳呢？赶上高兴，男子把娃娃抱起来，耍巴一回。
By exposing my breasts and feeding the little baby, I could only love her more, but I couldn't think of scolding her for being so unruly. By the time I was 24, I had a son and a daughter. What credit does a husband have for having children and raising them? When he was happy, the man picked up the doll and played with it.
其余的苦处全是女人的。我不是个糊涂人，不必等谁告诉我才能明白这个。真的，生小孩、养育小孩，男人有时候想去帮忙也归无用。不过，一个懂得点人事的人，自然该使做妻的痛快一些。
The rest of the suffering is all women's. I'm not a fool. I don't have to wait for someone to tell me to understand this. It is true that when a man gives birth to a child and raises a child, it is useless for a man to help sometimes. However, a man who knows a little bit about people should naturally make his wife more happy.
自有一些75孕妇或一个年轻的母亲，据我看，才真是混蛋呢。对于我的妻，自从有了小孩之后，我更放任了些，我认为这是当然的、合理的。再一说呢，夫妇是树，儿女是花。
Be more liberal. Bullying a pregnant woman or a young mother is, in my opinion, a real bastard. As for my wife, since having children, I have become more permissive. I think this is of course reasonable. Furthermore, couples are trees and children are flowers.
有了花的树才能显出根深，一切猜忌、不放心都应该减少或者完全消灭。小孩子会把母亲拴得结结实实的，所以即使我觉得他有点野，真不愿用这个臭字，我也不能不放心了。
Only with flowers can a tree show its deep roots. All suspicions and uneasiness should be reduced or completely eliminated. Children will tie their mothers tightly. So, even though I think she's a little wild, I really hate to use this bad word. I can't help but feel relieved.
她是个母亲呀。第4段，直到如今，我还是不能明白那到底是怎么一回事。我所不能明白的是，也就是当时叫我差点疯了的是，我的妻跟人家跑了。我再说一遍。
She is a mother. Paragraph 4. To this day, I still can't understand what that happened. What I couldn't understand was what drove me almost crazy at the time. My wife ran away with her. I'll say it again.
到如今，我还不能明白那到底是怎回事。我不是个固执的人，因为我久在街面上，懂得人情，知道怎样找出自己的长处与短处。但是，对于这件事，我把自己的短处都找遍了。
To this day I still can't understand what happened. I am not a stubborn person, because I have been on the street for a long time, understand human feelings, and know how to find out my strengths and weaknesses. However, regarding this matter, I looked for all my shortcomings.
也找不出应当受这种耻辱与惩罚的地方来，所以我只能说我的聪明与和气给我带来祸患，因为我实在找不出别的道理来。我有位师哥，这位师哥也就是我的仇人。街口上
I can't find any place where I deserve such shame and punishment. Therefore, I can only say that my intelligence and kindness bring me disaster, because I really can't find any other reason. I have a senior brother, and this senior brother is also my enemy. On the street corner.
人们都管他叫做黑子，我也就还这么叫他吧，不便道出他的真名实姓来。虽然他是我的仇人，黑子由于他的脸不白，不但不白，而且黑得特别，所以才有这个外号。
People call him Heisey, so I'll just call him that. I can't tell him his real name, even though he is my enemy. Heisey, because his face is not white. Not only is it not white, but it is also very dark, so he has this nickname.
他的脸真像个早年间人们揉的铁球，黑可是非常的亮，黑可是光润，黑可是油光水滑的可爱。当他喝下2盅酒或发热的时候，脸上红起来，就好像落太阳时的一些黑云。
His face is really like an iron ball that people rubbed in the early years. It is black, but very bright, black, but smooth, black, but smooth and cute. When he drinks 2 cups of wine, or becomes feverish, his face turns red, like some dark clouds when the sun sets.
黑里透出一些红光。至于他的五官，简直没有什么好看的地方，我比她漂亮多了。 他的身量很高，可也不见得怎么魁梧，高大而屑屑松松的。他所以不致叫人讨厌他。总而言之
Some red light shines through the darkness. As for his facial features, there is nothing attractive at all. I am much prettier than him. He was very tall, but not necessarily burly. He was tall and sloppy. That's why he doesn't make people hate him, in short.
都仗着那一张发亮的黑脸。我跟他是很好的朋友。他既是我的师哥，又那么傻大黑粗的，即使我不喜爱他，我也不能无缘无故的怀疑他。我的那点聪明不是给我预备着去猜疑人的，反之。
All thanks to that shiny black face. He and I are very good friends. He is my senior brother, but he is also so stupid, big and thick. Even if I don't like him, I can't doubt him without reason. My little bit of wisdom does not prepare me to doubt others, on the contrary.
我知道我的眼睛里不容沙子，所以我因信任自己而信任别人。我以为我的朋友都不至于偷偷地对我掏坏招数。一旦我认定谁是个可交的人，我便真拿他当个朋友看待。
I know there is no room for sand in my eyes, so I trust others because I trust myself. I thought that none of my friends would secretly play bad tricks on me. Once I identify someone as a friend, I really treat them as a friend.
对于我这个师哥，即使他有可猜疑的地方，我也得敬重他，招待他，因为无论怎样，他到底是我的师哥呀。同是一门学出来的手艺，又同在一个街口上混饭吃，有活没活。
For my senior brother, even if he is suspicious, I have to respect him and entertain him, because no matter what, he is my senior brother after all. They both learned the same craft, and they both work together on the same street, making a living.
一天至少也得见几面，对这么熟的人，我怎能不拿他当做个好朋友呢？有活，我们一同去做活；没活，他总是到我家来吃饭喝茶，有时候也摸几把索尔胡玩。那时候麻将还不十分时兴。
We have to meet at least a few times a day. How can I not treat someone so familiar as a good friend? If there was work, we would work together. If there was no work, he would always come to my house to eat and drink tea, and sometimes he would play with a few ropes. Mahjong was not very popular at that time.
我和蔼，他也不客气，遇到什么就吃什么，遇到什么就喝什么。我一向不特别为他预备什么，他也永远不挑剔。他吃的很多，可是不懂得挑食。看他端着大碗，跟着我们吃热汤面什么的。
I'm kind, but he's not polite either. He eats whatever he encounters and drinks whatever he encounters. I never prepare anything special for him, and he's never picky. He eats a lot, but he is not picky about food. Watch him holding a big bowl and eating hot soup noodles and other things with us.
真是个痛快的事。他吃得四脖子汗流，嘴里稀拉呼噜的响，脸上越来越红，慢慢的成了个半红的大煤球似的。谁能说这样的人能存着什么坏心眼呢？一来二去。
What a joy! He was sweating all over his neck after eating, his mouth was slurping loudly, and his face was getting redder and redder, until it slowly turned into a big, half-red briquette. Who can say that such a person could have any evil intentions? Woolen cloth. Come and go.
我由大家的眼神看出来，天下并不很太平。可是我并没有怎么往心里搁这回事。假若我是个糊涂人，只有一个心眼，大概对这种事不会不听见风就是雨，马上闹个天昏地暗。
I can see from everyone's eyes that the world is not very peaceful. However, I didn't take it seriously. If I were a stupid person with only one mind, would probably not ignore the wind or rain about this kind of thing, and immediately cause chaos in the world.
也许立刻把事情弄个水落石出，也许是望风捕影而弄一鼻子灰。我的心眼多，绝不肯这么糊涂瞎闹，我得平心静气地想一想。先想我自己，想不出我有什么不对的地方来。
Maybe you can get to the bottom of the matter right away, or you can just wait and see what happened and get frustrated. I have a sharp mind and I will never be willing to act so foolishly. I have to think about it calmly. Thinking about myself first, I can't think of anything wrong with me.
即使我有许多毛病，反正至少我比诗歌漂亮、聪明，更像个人儿。再看诗歌吧，他的长相、行为、财力都不能叫他为非作歹，他不是那种一见面就叫女人动心的人。最后
Even if I have many shortcomings, at least I'm prettier, smarter, and more human than my senior brother. Let's look at senior brother again. His appearance, behavior, and financial resources can't teach him to do evil. He is not the kind of person who can make a woman fall in love with him as soon as he meets her. At last.
我详详细细地为我的年轻的妻子想一想，她跟了我已经4、5年，我俩在一处不算不快乐。即使她的快乐是假装的，而愿意去跟个她真喜爱的人，这在早年间几乎是不能有的。
I thought about my young wife in detail. She has been with me for 4 or 5 years, and we are not unhappy together. Even if her happiness is fake and she is willing to be with someone she really likes, which was almost impossible in her early years.
大概黑子也绝不会是这个人吧。他跟我都是手艺人，他的身份一点不比我高。同样，他不比我阔，不比我漂亮，不比我年轻。那么他贪图的是什么呢？想不出。
Probably Heisey will never be this person, right? He and I are both craftsmen, and his status is no higher than mine. Likewise, he is not richer, prettier, or younger than me. Then, what is she coveting? Can't think of anything.
就满打说他是受了他的引诱而迷了心，可是他用什么引诱他呢？是那张黑脸，那点本事，那身衣裳，腰里那几吊钱。笑话！哼，我要是有意的话嘛，我倒满可以去引诱女人，虽然钱不多。
They all said that she was seduced by him and lost her heart, but what did he use to lure her? That black face, that skill, those clothes, and how much money in his waist. Joke. If I had the intention, I could seduce women, even though I don't have much money.
至少我有个样子。黑子有什么呢？再说，就是说他一时迷了心窍，分别不出好歹来，难道他就肯舍得那2个小孩吗？我不能信大家的话，不能立时疏远了黑子，也不能傻子似的去盘问他。
At least I have a look. What does Heisey have? Besides, even if she was temporarily confused and couldn't tell the difference between good and evil, would she be willing to let go of those 2 children? I couldn't believe what everyone said, I couldn't immediately alienate Heisey, and I couldn't question her like a fool.
我全想过了，一点缝子没有，我只能慢慢的等着大家明白过来，他们是多虑。即使他们不是凭空造谣，我也得慢慢的查看，不能无缘无故的把自己、把朋友、把妻子都卷在黑土里边。
I have thought about it all, and there is no clue. I can only slowly wait for everyone to realize that they are worrying too much. Even if they are not spreading rumors out of thin air, I still have to take a closer look and not bury myself, my friends, and my wife in black soil for no reason.
有点聪明的人做事不能鲁莽。可是不久，黑子和我的妻子都不见了。直到如今， 我没再见过他俩。为什么他肯这么办呢？我非见着他，由他自己吐出实话，我不会明白。
A somewhat smart person cannot act recklessly. However, soon, Heisey and my wife disappeared. Until now, I have never seen them again. Why is she willing to do this? I wouldn't understand unless I see her and let her tell the truth.
我自己的思想永远不够对付这件事的。我真盼望能再见他一面，专为明白这件事。到如今我还是在个葫芦里。当时我怎样难过，用不着我自己细说。谁也能想到，一个年轻漂亮的人。
My own thoughts will never be enough for this. I really wish I could see her again, just to understand this. To this day I am still in a gourd. I don't need to elaborate on how sad I was at that time. No one can think of a young and beautiful person.
守着2个没了妈的小孩，在家里是怎样的难过。一个聪明规矩的人，最亲爱的妻子跟师哥跑了，在街面上是怎么难堪。同情我的人有话说不出，不认识我的人听到这件事。
How sad it is to guard 2 motherless children at home. How embarrassing it is for a smart and well-behaved person on the street when his dearest wife runs away with his senior brother. People who sympathize with me have nothing to say, and people who don't know me have nothing to say when they hear this.
总不会责备我的师哥，而一直的管我叫王八。在咱们这讲孝悌忠信的社会里，人们很喜欢有个王八，好教大家有放手指头的准头。我的口闭上，我的牙咬住。
He would never blame my senior brother, but would always call me a bastard. In our society that emphasizes filial piety, loyalty, and trust, people really like to have a bastard who can teach everyone how to place their fingers accurately. My mouth is closed and my teeth are clenched.
我心中只有他们俩的影和一片血。不用叫我见着他们，见着就是一刀，别的无需乎再说了。在当时，我只想拼上这条命，才觉得有点人味儿。现在事情过去这么多年了。
There is only the shadow of the 2 of them and a piece of blood in my heart. There is no need to teach me to see them, I will just cut them with a knife, and there is no need to say anything else. At that time, I just wanted to risk my life to feel a little human. Now, so many years have passed.
我可以细细地想这件事在我这一辈子里的作用了。我的嘴并没闲着，到处我打听黑子的消息。没用，他俩真像石沉大海一般，打听不着确实的消息。慢慢的，我的怒气消散了一些。
I can think carefully about the role this matter has played in my life. My mouth was not idle. I asked for news about Heisey everywhere. It's no use, they both seem to be lost in the sea. I couldn't find any definite information, so my anger slowly dissipated.
说也奇怪，怒气一消，我反倒可怜我的妻子。黑子不过是个手艺人，而这种手艺只能在京津一带大城里找到饭吃，乡间是不需要讲究的烧活的。那么，假若他俩是逃到远处去。
Oddly enough, once the anger subsided, I felt pity for my wife. Heisey is just a craftsman, and this kind of craftsmanship can only be found in the big cities around Beijing and Tianjin. There is no need to pay attention to cooking in the countryside. So, if they escape far away.
他拿什么养活他呢？哼，假若他肯偷好朋友的妻子，难道他就不会把她卖掉吗？这个恐惧时常在我心中绕来绕去。我真希望他忽然逃回来，告诉我他怎样上了当，受了苦处。
What would he do to support her? If he was willing to steal his good friend's wife, wouldn't he sell her? This fear often goes around in my heart. I wish she would suddenly come back and tell me how she had been deceived and suffered.
假若她真跪在我的面前，我想我不会不收下她的。一个心爱的女人永远是心爱的，不管她做了什么错事。她没有回来，没有消息，我恨她一会儿，又可怜她一会儿，胡思乱想。
If she really kneels in front of me, I don't think I will accept her. A beloved woman will always be beloved, no matter what wrong things she has done. She didn't come back, and there was no news. I hated her for a while, and pitied her for a while, thinking wildly.
我有时候整夜的不能睡。过了1年多，我的这种乱想又清淡了许多。是的，我这一辈子也不能忘了她，可是我不再为她思索什么了。我承认了，这是一段千真万确的事实。
Sometimes I can't sleep all night. After more than a year, my random thoughts have become much lighter. Yes, I can't forget her in this life, but I don't think about her anymore. I admit that this is an absolutely true fact.
不必为她多费心思了。我到底怎样了呢？这倒是我所要说的，因为这件我永远猜不透的事，在我这一辈子里实在是件极大的事。这件事好像是在梦中丢失了我最亲爱的人，一睁眼。
No need to worry about it. What happened to me? This is what I want to say, because this thing that I can never guess is really a huge thing in my life. This thing is like losing my dearest person in a dream, as soon as I open my eyes.
他真的跑得无影无踪了。这个梦没法明白，可是他的真确劲儿是谁也受不了的。做过这么个梦的人，就是没有成疯子，也得大大的改变。他是丢失了半个命呀。第5段，最初。
She literally ran away without a trace. This dream was incomprehensible, but its realness was unbearable to anyone. A person who has had such a dream, even if he does not become a madman, has to change greatly. He has lost half his life. Paragraph 5. Initial.
我连屋门也不肯出，我怕见那个又明又暖的太阳。顶难堪的是，头一次上街，抬着头大大方方的走吧，准有人说我天生来的不知羞耻；低着头走，便是自己招认了，脊背发软。怎么这也不对？
I didn't even want to leave the house because I was afraid of seeing the bright and warm sun. The most embarrassing thing was going out on the street for the first time. I walked openly with my head held high. Someone might say that I was born without shame. Walking with your head down is admitting that your back is weak. Nothing is right.
我可是问心无愧，没做过一点对不起人的事。我破了戒，又吸烟喝酒了。什么备孕不备孕的，有什么再比丢了老婆更倒霉的呢？我不求人家可怜我，也犯不上诚心对谁耍刺儿。
I have a clear conscience and have never done anything sorry to anyone. I broke the habit and started smoking and drinking again. What is unlucky? What could be more unlucky than losing your wife? I don't ask people to pity me, and I don't deliberately play tricks on anyone.
我独自吸烟喝酒，把委屈放在心里好了。再没有比不测的祸患更能扫除了迷信的。以前我对什么神仙都不敢得罪，现在我什么也不信，连活佛也不信了。迷信我咂摸出来。
I smoked and drank alone, keeping my grievances in my heart. Nothing can eliminate superstition better than unexpected disasters. Before, I didn't dare to offend any gods. Now, I don't believe in anything, not even living Buddhas. Superstitious, I sucked it out.
是盼望得点意外的好处， 感到遇上意外的难处，你就什么也不盼望，自然也不迷信了。我把财神和灶王的龛，我亲手糊的都烧了。亲友中很有些人说我成了二毛子的。
It is to hope for some unexpected benefits. When you encounter unexpected difficulties, you will not expect anything, and naturally you will not be superstitious. I burned the niches of the god of wealth and the kitchen god, which I had made with my own hands. Many people among my relatives and friends say that I have become an idiot.
什么二毛子三毛子的，我再不给谁磕头。人若是不可靠，神仙就更没准了。我并没变成忧郁的人，这种事本来是可以把人愁死的，可是我没往死牛犄角里钻。我原是个活泼的人，好吧。
I won't kowtow to anyone who is worth 2 cents or 3 cents. If people are unreliable, gods are even less reliable. I didn't become a depressed person. This kind of thing could make people worry to death, but I didn't dig into the dead cow's horns. I'm a lively person, okay.
我要打算活下去，就得别丢了我的活泼劲儿。不错，意外的大祸往往能忽然把一个人的习惯与脾气改变了。可是我决定要保持住我的活泼。我吸烟、喝酒，不再信神佛。
If I'm going to survive, I have to keep my lively spirit. It is true that unexpected disasters can often suddenly change a person's habits and temperament, but I decided to maintain my liveliness. I smoke, drink, and no longer believe in gods or Buddhas.
不过都是些使我活泼的方法。不管我是真乐还是假乐，我乐。在我学艺的时候，我就会这一招。经过这次的变动，我更必须这样了。现在我已快饿死了，我还是笑着。
But they are all ways to make me lively. No matter whether I am really happy or fake, I am happy. I knew this trick when I was learning the art, and after this change, I have to do it even more. Now, I'm starving, but I'm still smiling.
连我自己也说不清这是真的还是假的笑，反正我笑，多咱死了，多咱我并上嘴。从那件事发生了以后，直到如今，我始终还是个有用的人，热心的人，可是我心中有了个空。
Even I can't tell whether it's a real smile or a fake smile. Anyway, I laugh, and am still talking about it. From that incident until now, I have always been a useful and enthusiastic person, but there was a void in my heart.
这个空是那件不幸的事给我留下的，像墙上中了枪弹，老有个小窟窿似的。我有用，我热心，我爱给人家帮忙，但是不幸而事情没办到好处，或者想不到的扎手，我不着急，也不动气。
This hole was left by that unfortunate incident, like a small hole in the wall after a bullet was hit. I am useful, I am enthusiastic, and I love to help others. However, unfortunately, if things do not work out for me, or unexpected problems arise, I am not anxious or angry.
因为我心中有个空，这个空会叫我在极热心的时候冷静，极欢喜的时候有点悲哀。我的笑常常和泪碰在一起，而分不清哪个是哪个。这些都是我心里头的变动，我自己要是不说。
Because there is a space in my heart. This time will teach me to be calm when I am extremely enthusiastic, and a little sad when I am extremely happy. My laughter often meets tears, and I can't tell which is which. These are all changes in my heart. If I don't say it myself.
自然连我自己也说不大完全，大概别人无从猜到。在我的生活上也有了变动，这是人人能看到的。我改了行，不再当裱糊匠，我没脸再上街口去等生意。同行的人认识我的，也必认识黑子。
Naturally, even I can't say it completely, probably others can't guess it. There have also been changes in my life, which everyone can see. I have changed my profession and am no longer a paper framer. I have no shame in going to the streets to wait for business. Those who travel with me, and those who know me, will also know Heisey.
他们只需多看我几眼，我就没法再咽下饭去。在那报纸还不大实行的年月，人们的眼睛是比新闻还要厉害的。现在离婚都可以上衙门去明说明讲，早年间男女的事儿可不能这么随便。
All they had to do was look at me a few more times before I could no longer swallow my food. In those days when newspapers were not yet popular, people's eyes were more powerful than the news. Nowadays, if you want to get divorced, you can go to the yamen and explain it clearly. In the early years, matters between men and women could not be so casual.
我把同行中的朋友全放下了，连我的师父师母都懒得去看，我仿佛是要由这个世界一脚跳到另一个世界去。这样，我觉得我才能独自把那桩事关在心里头。
I put down all my friends in the same industry, and even my master and my wife were too lazy to look at me. I seem to be jumping from this world to another. In this way, I feel that I can keep the matter in my mind alone.
年头的改变，教裱糊匠们的活路越来越狭。但是要不是那回事，我也不会改行改得这么快，这么干脆。放弃了手艺没什么可惜，可是这么放弃了手艺，我也不会感谢那回事儿。不管怎说吧。
Changes over the years have meant that the job opportunities for paper framers have become increasingly narrow, but if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have changed my profession so quickly or so simply. It's no pity to give up my craft, but if I give up my craft like this, I won't be grateful for that thing. Anyway.
我改了行，这是个显然的变动。决定扔下手艺，可不就是我准知道应该干什么去？我得去乱碰，像一只空船浮在水面上，浪头是它的指南针。在前面我已经说过，我认识字，还能抄抄写写。
I changed careers. It was an obvious change. Deciding to give up my craft didn't mean I knew exactly what I should do. I have to bump around, like an empty ship floating on the water, with the waves as its compass. I have said before that I know Chinese characters and can also copy and write.
很够当个小差事的。再说呢，当差是个体面的事，我这丢了老婆的人若能当上差，不用说，那必能把我的名誉恢复了一些。现在想起来，这个想法真有点可笑。
It's enough for a small errand. Besides, being an errand is a decent thing. If I, who lost my wife, could become an errand, it goes without saying that my reputation would be somewhat restored. Now that I think about it, this idea is kind of ridiculous.
在当时我可是诚心的相信这是最高明的办法。八字还没有一撇，我觉得很高兴，仿佛我已经很有把握，既得到差事，又能恢复了名誉。我的头又抬得很高了。哼，手艺是3年可以学成的。
At the time, I sincerely believed this was the wisest approach. The word 8 has not yet been written, and I feel very happy, as if I am already very sure that I will not only get the job, but also restore my reputation. My head is raised very high again. Snort. The craft can be learned in 3 years.
差事也许要30年才能得上吧。一个钉子跟着一个钉子，都预备着给我碰呢。我说我识字，哼，感情有好些个能整本背书的人还挨饿呢。我说我会写字，感情会写字的绝不算出奇呢。
It might take 30 years to get the job. One nail after another, they are all ready for me to touch. I said I was literate, It's a shame that there are so many people who can endorse the entire book and still go hungry. I said I can write, but it's not surprising that someone can write.
我把自己看得太高了，可是我又亲眼看见那做着很大的官的，一天到晚山珍海味的吃着，连自己的姓都不大认的。那么，是不是我的学问又太大了，而超过了做官所需要的呢？
I think too highly of myself. However, I saw with my own eyes that a man with a very high official position ate all kinds of delicacies all day long and didn't even know his own surname. So, is it that my knowledge is too great and exceeds what is needed to be an official?
我这个聪明人也没法不显着糊涂了。慢慢的，我明白过来，原来差事不是给本事预备着的，想做官第一得有人。这简直没了我的事，不管我有多么大的本事，我自己是个手艺人。
Even a smart person like me can't help but be obviously confused. Slowly, I understood. It turns out that errands are not prepared for the talented. If you want to be the number one official, you need someone. This simply has nothing to do with me, no matter how capable I am. I am a craftsman myself.
所认识的也是手艺人，我爸爸呢，又是个白丁，虽然是很有本事与品行的白丁。我上哪里去找差事当呢？事情要是逼着一个人走上哪条道，他就非去不可，就像火车一样，轨道已摆好。
The people I know are also craftsmen. My father is also a white man, although he is a very capable and moral man. Where can I find a job? If things force a person to go down a path, he must go, just like a train, the track has been laid out.
照着走就是了，一出花样准得翻车。我也是如此，决定扔下了手艺，而得不到个差事，我又不能老这么闲着。好了，我的面前已摆好了铁轨，只准上前，不许退后。我当了巡警。
Just follow the lead, and you're bound to overturn if you come up with a trick. So am I. I decided to give up my craft, but I couldn't stay idle forever without getting a job. Okay, the rails have been laid out in front of me. You can only move forward, not back. I became a patrolman.
巡警和洋车是大城里头给苦人们安好的两条火车道，大字不识而什么手艺也没有的，只好去拉车。拉车不用什么本钱，肯出汗就能吃窝窝头，10几个字而好体面的。
Patrol police and foreign trucks are the two safe train lines in the big city for the poor people. Those who were illiterate and had no skills had no choice but to pull carts. It doesn't cost much to pull a cart, and if you're willing to sweat, you can eat cornbread. He knows a few words and is decent.
有手艺而挣不上饭的，只好去当巡警。别的先不提，挑巡警用不着多大的人情，而且一挑上先有身制服穿着，6块钱拿着，好歹是个差事。除了这条道，我简直无路可走。
Those who had skills but could not earn a living had no choice but to work as patrolmen. Putting aside everything else, picking a patrolman did not require much favor, and the first time you were picked, you had to wear a uniform and get 6 yuan. At any rate, it was an errand. There is literally no other way for me to go but this one.
我既没混到必须拉车去的地步，又没有做高官的舅舅或姐丈，巡警正好不高不低，只要我肯，就能穿上一身铜牛子的制服。当兵比当巡警有起色，即使熬不上军官。
I'm not old enough to have to pull a cart, and I don't have an uncle or a brother-in-law who is a high-ranking official. I'm a patrol officer who's neither high nor low. As long as I'm willing, I can wear a uniform with brass buttons. Being a soldier is better than being a patrolman, even if you can't make it to the officer level.
至少能有抢劫些东西的机会。可是我不能去当兵，我家中还有俩没娘的小孩啊。当兵要野，当巡警要文明。换句话说，当兵有发邪财的机会，当巡警是穷而文明一辈子，穷得要命。
At least there would be a chance to rob something. However, I can't join the army. I still have 2 motherless children at home. To be a soldier is to be wild, to be a patrolman is to be civilized. In other words, to be a soldier is to have the opportunity to make a fortune, but to be a patrolman is to be poor but civilized for the rest of your life, very poor.
文明的稀松。以后这50、60年的经验，我敢说这么一句：真会办事的人，到时候才说话；爱张罗办事的人，像我自己，没话也找话说。我的嘴老不肯闲着，对什么事我都有一片说辞。
Civilization is sparse. After 50 or 60 years of experience, I dare to say this: people who are really good at getting things done will speak only when the time comes. People who like to do things in an arrogant way, like myself, will always find something to say when they have nothing to say. My mouth is always busy and I have a lot to say about everything.
对什么人，我都想很恰当的给起个外号。我受了报应，第一件事，我丢了老婆，把我的嘴封起来12年。第二件是我当了巡警。在我还没当上这个差事的时候，我管巡警们叫做马路行走。
I want to give everyone an appropriate nickname. I received retribution. The first thing was that I lost my wife and had my mouth sealed for a year or 2. The second thing is that I became a patrol officer. Before I got this job, I called the patrol officers street walkers.
避风阁大学士和臭脚巡，这些无非都是说巡警们的差事只是站马路，无事忙，跑臭脚。哼，我自己当上臭脚巡了，生命简直就是自己和自己开玩笑，一点不假。我自己打了自己的嘴巴。
Bachelor of the Windproof Pavilion and Stinky Foot Patrol. These are just saying that the patrolman's job is just to stand on the road, busy with nothing, running stinky feet. Ha! I have become a stinky foot patrol myself. Life is simply my own. I'm kidding myself, it's true. I slapped myself in the mouth.
可并不因为我做了什么缺德的事，至多也不过爱多说几句玩笑话罢了。在这里，我认识了生命的严肃，连句玩笑话都说不得的。好在我心中有个扣，我怎么叫别人臭脚巡？
But it's not because I did anything immoral. At most, it was just because I liked to tell a few jokes. Here, I learned how serious life is, and I can't even tell a joke. Fortunately, I have a space in my heart. How can I call others Stinky Feet Patrol?
也照样叫自己。这在早年间叫做抹稀泥，现在的新名词应叫着什么，我还没能打听出来。我没法不去当巡警，可是真觉得有点委屈。是啊，我没有什么出众的本事，但是论街面上的事。
Also call yourself the same. This was called smearing mud in the early years. I haven't been able to figure out what the new term is now. I have no choice but to be a patrol officer, but I really feel a little aggrieved. Yes, I don't have any outstanding abilities, but when it comes to things on the street.
我敢说我比谁知道的也不少。巡警不是管街面上的事情吗？那么，请看看那些警官吧，有的连本地的话都说不上来，2+2是4还是5， 都得想半天。哼，他是官，我可是招募警。
I dare say I know more than anyone else. Aren't the patrol officers in charge of things on the streets? Well, please look at those police officers. Some of them can't even speak the local dialect, and they have to think for a long time whether 2 plus 2 is 4 or 5. Snort. He is an officer and I am a recruiting police officer.
他的一双皮鞋够开我半年的饷。他什么经验与本事也没有，可是他做官，这样的官儿多了去了，上哪儿讲理去呢？记得有位教官，头一天教我们操法的时候，忘了叫立正，而叫了闸柱。
A pair of his leather shoes is enough to pay my salary for half a year. He has no experience or ability, yet he is an official. There are too many officials like this. Where can I go to reason? I remember an instructor who forgot to say, "Stand at attention," when he was teaching us the exercises on the first day, and instead called, "Stop."
用不着打听，这位大爷一定是拉洋车出身，有人情就行。今天你拉车，明天你姑父做了什么官儿，你就可以弄个教官当当，叫闸柱也没关系，谁敢笑教官一声呢？这样的自然是不多。
No need to ask, this man must have a background in driving rickshaws. As long as you have a favor, today you pull the cart, and tomorrow your uncle will be an official, you can be an instructor. It doesn't matter if you call him Zhazhu, who dares to laugh at the instructor. Naturally, there are not many like this.
可是有这么一位教官，也就可以教人想到巡警的操法是怎么稀松二五眼了。内堂的功课自然绝不是这样教官所能担任的，因为至少得认识些个字才能唬得下来。
But having such an instructor can teach people how casually the patrolman works. Naturally, the homework in the inner hall is definitely not something that such an instructor can do, because you have to know at least a few words to be able to do it, Tiger.
我们的内堂的教官大概可以分为两种，一种是老人们，多数都有口鸦片烟瘾，他们要是能讲明白一样东西，就凭他们那点人情，大概早就做上大官了，为其什么也讲不明白。
The instructors in our inner hall can be roughly divided into 2 types. One is the old people, most of whom are addicted to opium. If they could explain something clearly, with their little kindness, they would probably become high officials long ago. But he couldn't understand anything.
所以才来做教官。另一种是年轻的小伙子们，讲的都是洋事，什么东洋巡警怎么样，什么法国伪警律如何，仿佛我们都是洋鬼子。这种讲法有个好处，就是他们信口开河瞎扯。
That's why I came to be an instructor. The other type is young guys who talk about foreign things, such as what the Japanese patrol is like and what French law violations are like, as if we are all foreign devils. One advantage of this kind of statement is that they are talking nonsense.
我们一边打盹一边听着，谁也不准知道东洋和法国是什么样，可不就随他的便说吧。我满可以编一套美国的事讲给大家听，可惜我不是教官罢了。
We took a nap and listened. No one is allowed to know what Japan and France are like, so let's just let him say whatever he wants. I could make up a story about the United States and tell it to everyone, but it's a pity that I'm not an instructor.
这群年轻的小人们真懂外国事儿不懂，无从知道。反正我准知道他们一点中国事儿也不晓得。这两种教官的年纪上、学问上都不同，可是他们有个相同的地方。
These young people really know a lot about foreign things and have no way of knowing. Anyway, I know for sure that they don't know anything about China. These 2 types of instructors are different in age and knowledge, but they have something in common.
就是他们都高不成低不就，所以对付富的只能做教官。他们的人情真不小，可是本事太差，所以来教一群为6块洋钱而一声不敢出的巡警就最合适。教官如此。
It's just that they are neither high nor low, so they can only be dealt with as instructors. They are very kind, but their skills are too poor, so it is most suitable to teach a group of patrolmen who dare not give out anything for $6. The instructor is like this.
别的警官也差不多是这样。想想，谁要是能去做一任知县或税局局长，谁肯来做警官呢？前面我已交代过了，当巡警是高不成低不就，不得已而为之。警官也是这样，这群人由上至下全是。
The same goes for other police officers. Think about it. If anyone can be a county magistrate or director of the tax bureau, who is willing to be a police officer? As I have explained before, being a patrol officer is a job that cannot be done at a high level or a low level. It is a last resort. The same goes for police officers. From top to bottom, this group of people are all
狗熊耍扁担，混碗饭吃。不过呢，巡警一天到晚在街面上，不论怎样抹稀泥，多少得能说会道，见机而作，把大事化小，小事化无，既不多给官面上惹麻烦，又让大家都过得去，真的罢假的罢。
A bear is playing with a pole, just messing around with food. However, the patrol policeman is on the street all day long, no matter how he spreads mud. He must be eloquent, act according to the opportunity, make big things into small things, and make small things into nothing. He will not give too much to the officials. It causes trouble on the surface and makes everyone get along. It can be real or fake.
这总得算点本事，而做警官的呢，就连这点本事似乎也不必有。阎王好做，小鬼难当，诚然。第6段，我再多说几句，或者就没人再说我太狂傲无知了。我说我觉得委屈，真是实话，请看吧。
This has to be calculated. As a police officer, it seems that even this ability is not necessary. It is true that the king of hell is easy to act, but the devil is difficult to deal with. Paragraph 6. If I say a few more words, maybe no one will say that I am too arrogant and ignorant. When I said I felt wronged, I was telling the truth. Please take a look.
1月挣6块钱，这跟当仆人的一样，而没有仆人们那些外找，死挣6块钱，就凭这么个大人，腰板挺直，样子漂亮，年轻力壮，能说会道，还得识文断字。这一大堆资格，一共值6块钱。
Earning $6 a month is the same as being a servant, but there are no outsiders like servants. Earning $6 a month is just for an adult like this, upright, handsome, young, strong, and eloquent. You also need to be able to read and write. This pile of qualifications is worth a total of $6.
6块钱响粮，扣去3块半钱的伙食，还得扣去什么人情公印儿，净剩也就是2块上下钱吧。衣服自然是可以穿官发的，可是到休息的时候，谁肯还穿着制服回家呢？那么
6 yuan for food, after deducting 3.5 yuan for food, and deducting some favors, the net balance is probably about 2 yuan. Of course, you can wear official clothes, but when it comes to rest, who is willing to go home in uniform, then?
不做也得有件大褂什么的。要是把钱做了大褂，1个月就算白混。再说，谁没有家呢？父母，先别提父母吧，就说一夫一妻吧，至少得另一间房，得有老婆的吃喝穿。就凭那2块大洋。
Even if you don't do anything, you still have to wear a coat or something. If the money is used as a coat, 1 month's work will be in vain. Besides, who doesn't have a home? Parents, ugh, forget about parents for now. Let's just say monogamy. You have to rent at least a room, and you have to have a wife to eat, drink, and wear. Just those 2 oceans.
谁也不许生病，不许生小孩，不许吸烟，不许吃点零碎东西。连这么着，月月还不够嚼骨。我就不明白为什么肯有人把姑娘嫁给当巡警的，虽然我常给同事的做媒。
No one is allowed to get sick, no one is allowed to have children, no one is allowed to smoke, and no one is allowed to eat odds and ends. Even with this, every month is not enough to chew grain. I don't understand why some people would marry a girl to a patrolman, even though I often play matchmaker for my colleagues.
当我一到女家提说的时候，人家总对我一撇嘴，虽不明说，但是意思很明显。哼，当巡警的。可是我不怕这一撇嘴，因为10回到有9回是撇完嘴而点了头。难道是世界上的姑娘太多了吗？
Whenever I go to the girl's house and talk about it, she always gives me a pout. Although she doesn't say it clearly, the meaning is very clear, huh? I'm a patrol officer. But I'm not afraid of this pout, because 9 times out of 10 it's like that. He curled his lips and nodded. Are there too many girls in the world?
我不知道。由哪面看，巡警都活该是鼓着腮帮子充胖子，而叫人哭不得笑不得的。穿起制服来，干净利落，又体面又威风，车马行人，打架吵嘴都由他管着。他这是差事。
I have no idea. No matter how you look at it, the patrolman deserves to puff out his cheeks and pretend to be fat, making people laugh and cry. Wearing a uniform, he looks neat, dignified and dignified. He is in charge of all the carriages, horses, pedestrians, fights and quarrels. This is his errand.
可是他1月除了吃饭，净剩2块来钱。他自己也知道中气不足，可是不能不硬挺着腰板。到时候他得娶妻生子，还是仗着那2块来钱。提婚的时候，头一句是说：“小人呀，当差。”
But apart from food, he only had 2 yuan left in January. He himself also knew that he was short of energy, but he had to stand firm. When the time comes, he will have to marry a wife and have children, and he will still rely on the 2 yuan to make money. When proposing marriage, the first sentence is, "You little man is on duty."
当差的底下还有什么呢？没人愿意细问，一问就遭到底。是的，巡警们都知道自己怎样的委屈，可是风里雨里，他得去巡街下夜，一点懒不敢偷，一偷懒就有被开除的危险。他委屈。
What else is there under the job? No one wants to ask in detail, and it will be the worst if you ask. Yes, the patrol officers all know how wrong they are, but he has to patrol the streets in the wind and rain all night, and he doesn't dare to steal if he is lazy. If he is lazy, he is in danger of being fired. He feels wronged.
可不敢抱怨，他劳苦，可不敢偷闲。他知道自己在这里混不出来什么，而不敢冒险搁下差事。这点差事扔了可惜，做着又没劲。这些人也就人似的，先混过一天是一天。
But he didn't dare to complain. He worked hard, but he didn't dare to take a break. He knew that he couldn't get anything done here, so he didn't dare to risk putting off his errands. It's a pity to throw away this little errand, and it's boring to do it. These people are just like human beings, just living one day at a time. 在没劲中要露出劲儿来，像打太极拳似的。
世上为什么应当有这种差事，和为什么有这样多肯做这种差事的人？我想不出来。假若下辈子我再脱生为人，而且忘了喝迷魂汤。
When you are feeling weak, you need to show your strength, just like doing Tai Chi. Why should this kind of errand exist in the world, and why are there so many people willing to do this kind of errand? I can't figure it out. What if I were reborn as a human being in my next life and forgot to drink the ecstasy soup?
还记得这一辈子的事，我必定要扯着脖子去喊，这玩意儿整个的是丢人，是欺骗，是杀人不流血。现在我老了，快饿死了，连喊这么几句也顾不及了，我还得先为下顿的窝窝头着忙呀。
Still remembering what happened in this life, I must tear my neck out and shout, "This thing is completely embarrassing, deceiving, and killing without blood." Now, I am old and starving to death. I don't even bother to shout these few words. I have to be busy with the next meal first.
自然在我初当差的时候，我并没有一下子就把这些都看清楚了，谁也没有那么聪明。反之，一上手当差，我倒觉出点高兴来，穿上整齐的制服、靴帽，的确我是漂亮精神，而且心里说。
Naturally, when I first started working, I didn't understand all of this clearly at once, and no one was that smart. On the contrary, I felt a little happy as soon as I started working as an errand. I put on a neat uniform, boots, and hat. Indeed, I looked pretty and energetic, and I said in my heart,
好吧，歹吧，这是个差事，凭我的聪明与本事，不久我必有个升腾。我很留神看巡长巡官们制服上的铜星与金道，而想象着我将来也能那样。
Well or not, this is an errand. With my intelligence and ability, I will be promoted soon. I paid close attention to the bronze stars and gold medals on the uniforms of the patrol officers, and imagined that I could do the same in the future.
我一点也没想到，那铜星与金道并不按着聪明与本事颁给人们呀。新鲜劲儿刚一过去，我已经讨厌那身制服了。它不叫任何人尊敬，而只能告诉人臭脚寻来了。拿制服的本身说。
It never occurred to me that the Bronze Star and the Golden Path were not awarded to people based on their intelligence and ability. As soon as the novelty wore off, I already hated that uniform. It does not teach anyone respect, but can only tell people that Stinky Foot Patrol is coming. The person holding the uniform said.
他也很讨厌，夏天他就像牛皮似的，把人闷得满身臭汗。冬天呢，他一点也不像牛皮了，而倒像是纸糊的。他不许谁在里边多穿一点衣服，只好任着狂风由胸口钻进来，由脊背钻出去。
It is also very annoying. In summer, it is like cowhide, making people stifled with stinking sweat. In winter, it does not look like cowhide at all, but more like paper. It does not allow anyone to wear more clothes inside. I had no choice but to let the strong wind get in through my chest and out through my back.
整打个穿堂，再看那双皮鞋，冬冷夏热，永远不叫脚舒服一会儿。穿单袜的时候，它好像是两大篓子似的，脚趾脚踵都在里边乱抓弄，而始终找不到鞋在哪里。到穿棉袜的时候
A whole haul. Look at that pair of leather shoes again. It's cold in winter and hot in summer, and your feet never feel comfortable for a while. When you wear single socks, they look like two big baskets, and your toes and heels are scratching in them, and you can never find where the shoes are. When it's time to wear cotton socks.
它们忽然变得很紧，不许棉袜与脚一起伸进去。有多少人因包办制服皮鞋而发了财，我不知道。我只知道我的脚永远烂着，夏天闹湿气，冬天闹冻疮。 自然烂脚也得照常的去巡街站岗。
They suddenly became very tight and did not allow the cotton socks to go in together with the feet. I don't know how many people have made a fortune by arranging uniforms and leather shoes. I only know that my feet are always rotten. They suffer from moisture in summer and frostbite in winter. Naturally, even with rotten feet, he has to patrol the streets and stand guard as usual.
要不然就别挣那6块洋钱。多么热或多么冷，别人都可以找地方去躲一躲，连洋车夫都可以自由的歇半天，巡警得去巡街，得去站岗，热死冻死都活该。那6块现大洋买着你的命呢。
Otherwise, don't make that $6. No matter how hot or cold it is, others can find a place to hide. Even the rickshaw driver can rest freely for half a day. The patrolman has to patrol the streets and stand guard. He deserves to die from the heat or the freezing. That 6 yuan is now available for buying in the ocean. It's your life.
记得在哪儿看见过这么一句“食不饱，力不足”。不管这句在原地方讲的是什么吧，反正拿来形容巡警是没有多大错的。最可怜又可笑的是，我们既吃不饱，还得挺着劲儿。
I remember seeing this sentence somewhere. If you don't have enough food, you don't have enough strength. No matter what this sentence is about in its original place, there is nothing wrong with using it to describe the patrol police. The most pitiful and ridiculous thing is that we don't have enough to eat, but we still have to hold on.
站在街上得像个样子。要饭的花子有时不饿也弯着腰，假充饿了3天3夜。反之，巡警却不饱也得鼓起肚皮，假装刚吃完3大碗鸡丝面似的。花子装饿倒有点道理。
You have to look good standing on the street. The beggar Hanako sometimes bends over even though he is not hungry, pretending to be hungry for 3 days and 3 nights. On the other hand, the patrolman has to bulge his belly even though he is not full, pretending to have just eaten 3 large bowls of shredded chicken noodles. It makes sense for Hanako to pretend to be hungry.
我可就是想不出巡警假装酒足饭饱有什么理由来，我只觉得这真可笑。人们都不满意巡警的对付是抹稀泥。哼，抹稀泥自有他的理由。不过，在细说这个道理之前，
I just can't think of any reason for the patrolman to pretend to be drunk and well-fed. I just think it's ridiculous. People were dissatisfied with the patrol police's handling of the matter and wiped the slate clean. Snort. The mud has its own reasons. However, before elaborating on this truth,
我愿先说件极可怕的事。有了这件可怕的事，我再返回头来细说那些理由，仿佛就更顺当、更生动。好，就这样办了。第7段，应当有月亮，可是叫黑云给遮住了，处处都很黑。
let me begin by telling you something very terrible. With this terrible incident, it seems more comfortable and vivid for me to go back and elaborate on the reasons. Good. That's it. Paragraph 7. There should be a moon, but it was covered by dark clouds and it was dark everywhere.
我正在个僻静的地方巡夜，我的鞋上钉着铁掌。那时候每个巡警又需带着一把东洋刀，四下里鸦雀无声。听着我自己的铁掌与佩刀的声响，我感到寂寞无聊，而且几乎有点害怕。
I'm on patrol at night in a secluded place. My shoes were nailed with iron palms. At that time, every patrolman was required to carry a Japanese sword. There was total silence. Listening to the sound of my own iron palms and sword, I felt lonely, bored, and almost a little scared.
眼前忽然跑过一只猫，或忽然听见一声鸟叫，都叫我觉得不是味儿，勉强着挺起胸来。可是心中总空空虚虚的，仿佛将有些什么不幸的事情在前面等着我。不完全是害怕。
A cat suddenly ran past me, or I heard a bird chirping suddenly, which made me feel uncomfortable. I forced myself to straighten my chest, but my heart was always empty, as if some unfortunate thing was waiting for me ahead. Not exactly afraid.
又不完全气粗胆壮，就那么怪不得劲的，手心上出了点凉汗。平日我很有点胆量，什么看守死尸，什么独自看管一所脏房，都算不了一回事。不知为什么这一晚上我这样胆虚。
It's not like he was completely angry and courageous, but he was so angry that he felt a little cold sweat on his palms. On weekdays, I am quite courageous. It is nothing like guarding a dead body or guarding a dirty house alone. I don't know why I felt so timid that night.
心里越要耻笑自己，便越觉得不定哪里藏着点危险。我不便放快了脚步，可是心中急切地希望快回去，回到那有灯光与朋友的地方去。忽然，我听见一排枪，我立定了。
The more I wanted to laugh at myself, the more I felt that there might be some danger hidden somewhere. I couldn't help but walk faster, but I eagerly wanted to go back as soon as possible, to the place where there were lights and friends. Suddenly, I heard a row of guns. I'm determined.
胆子反倒壮起来一点，真正的危险似乎倒可以治好了胆虚，惊疑不定才是恐惧的根源。我听着像夜行的马竖起耳朵那样，又一排枪，又一排枪，没声了。我等着，听着，静寂的难堪。
On the contrary, I became more courageous. Real danger seemed to cure my timidity, and uncertainty was the root of fear. I listened like a night horse pricking up his ears. Another row of guns, another row of guns. There was no sound. I waited and listened. The silence was embarrassing.
像看见闪电儿等着雷声那样，我的心跳得很快，拍拍拍拍，四面八方都响起来了。我的胆气又渐渐地往下低落了。一排枪，我壮起气来，枪声太多了，真遇到危险了。我是个人，人怕死。
My heart beats fast like seeing lightning and waiting for thunder. Shoot, 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 it was heard from all directions. My courage gradually dropped again. A row of guns makes me strong. There are too many gunshots, and I am really in danger. I am a human being, and people are afraid of death.
我忽然地跑起来，跑了几步，猛地又立住，听一听，枪声越来越密，看不见什么，四下漆黑，只有枪声，不知为什么，不知在哪里，黑暗里只有我一个人听着远处的枪响。往哪里跑？到底是什么事？
I suddenly started running, ran for a few steps, and then stood up suddenly. I heard the gunshots getting thicker and thicker. I couldn't see anything. It was dark everywhere, and there were only gunshots. I don't know why, I don't know where, there was only the sound of gunshots in the darkness. I was alone, listening to gunshots in the distance. Where to run? What is going on?
应当想一想，又顾不得想，胆大也没用，没有主意就不会有胆量。还是跑吧，糊涂的乱动总比呆立哆嗦着强。我跑，狂跑，手紧紧地握住佩刀，像受了惊的猫狗，不必想也知道往家里跑。
You should think about it, but don't think about it. It's useless to be bold. If you don't have an idea, you won't have courage. It's better to run. Moving around aimlessly is better than standing still and trembling. I ran wildly, holding the saber tightly in my hand. Like frightened cats and dogs, they ran home without even thinking.
我已忘了我是巡警，我得先回家看看我那没娘的孩子去，要是死就死在一处。要跑到家，我得穿过好几条大街。刚到了头一条大街，我就晓得不容易再跑了。街上黑黑乎乎的人影。
I have forgotten that I am a patrolman. I have to go home first to see my motherless child. If I die, I will die in one place. To get home, I have to cross several streets. As soon as I reached the first street, I knew I wouldn't be able to run anymore. There are shadows of people on the street in the dark.
跑得很快，随跑随着放枪。兵，我知道那是些辫子兵，而我才刚剪了发不多日子。我很后悔我没像别人那样把头发盘起来，而是连割烂真正剪去了辫子。假如我能马上放下辫子来。
Run very fast, shooting as you go. Soldier. I know those are braided soldiers. And I just had my hair cut not long ago. I regret that I didn't tie my hair up like others, but actually cut off the braids at the roots. If only I could let go of my braids right now.
虽然这些兵们平素很讨厌巡警，可是因为我有辫子，或者不至于把枪口冲着我来。在他们眼中，没有辫子便是二毛子，该杀。我没有了这么条宝贝，我不敢再动，只能藏在黑影里看视形势。
Although these soldiers usually hate the patrol police, they don't point their guns at me because I have braids. In their eyes, those who don't have pigtails are just a fool and deserve to be killed. I no longer have such a treasure. I didn't dare to move anymore, so I could only hide in the shadows and watch what happened.
兵们在路上跑，一队跟着一队，枪声不停。我不晓得他们是干什么呢。待一会儿，兵们好像是都过去了。我往外探了探头，见外面没有什么动静，我就像一只夜鸟似的飞过了马路。
The soldiers were running on the road, one group following another, and the gunshots continued. I don't know what they are doing. After a while, it seemed that the soldiers had all passed. I poked my head out and saw that there was no movement outside. I flew across the road like a night bird.
到了街的另一边，在这极快地穿过马路的一会儿里，我的眼烧着一点红光，十字街头起了火。我还藏在黑影里，不久，火光远远地照亮了一片，在探头往外看。
Got to the other side of the street. While crossing the road very quickly, there was a little red light at the end of my eyes. There was a fire on the cross street. I was still hiding in the shadow. Soon, the fire illuminated the area from a distance. I looked out again.
我已可以影影绰绰地看到十字街口，所有四面八角的铺户已全烧起来，火影中那些兵们来回地奔跑，放着枪。我明白了，这是兵变。不久，火光更多了，一处接着一处。
I could already vaguely see the crossroads. All the shops at the corners were on fire, and the soldiers in the fire's shadow were running back and forth, firing their guns. I get it, this is a mutiny. Soon, there were more fires, one after another.
由光亮的距离我可以断定，凡是附近的十字口与丁字街全烧了起来。说句该挨嘴巴的话，火是真好看。远处漆黑的天上忽然一白，紧跟着又黑了。忽然又一白，猛地冒起一个红团。
From the distance of the light, I could tell that all nearby intersections and T-shaped streets were on fire. To be honest, fire is so beautiful. In the distance, the dark sky suddenly turned white, then darkened again. Suddenly it turned white again, and a red ball suddenly appeared.
有一块天像烧红的铁板，红得可怕。在红光里看见了多少股黑烟和火舌们高低不齐地往上冒，一会儿烟遮住了火苗，一会儿火苗冲破了黑烟，黑烟滚着转着，千变万化地往上升。
There was a patch of sky like a red-hot iron plate, terrifyingly red. In the red light, I saw several strands of black smoke, and tongues of fire rising up in uneven heights. For a while, the smoke covered the flames. For a while, the flames broke through the black smoke. The black smoke is rolling, turning, and rising in ever-changing ways.
凝成一片，照住下面的火光，像浓雾掩住了夕阳。待一会儿，火光明亮了一些，烟也改成灰白色，纯净望赤，火苗不多，而光亮结成一片，照明了半个天。那近处的烟与火中带着种种的响声。
They condensed into one piece, covering the firelight below, like thick fog covering the sunset. After a while, the fire became brighter and the smoke turned gray-white, pure and blazing. There were not many flames, but the light formed into one piece, illuminating half the sky. Nearby, there were various sounds in the smoke and fire.
烟往高处起，火往四下里奔，烟像些丑恶的黑龙，火像些乱长乱钻的红铁笋。烟裹着火，火裹着烟，卷起多高，忽然离散，黑烟里落下无数的火花，或者3、5个极大的火团。火花火团落下。
The smoke rises to high places, and the fire rushes in all directions. The smoke is like some ugly black dragons, and the fire is like some red iron bamboo shoots that grow in disorder. The smoke wraps around the fire, and the fire wraps up the smoke. It rolls up as high as it can, and suddenly disperses. Countless sparks fall from the black smoke, or 3 or 5 huge fireballs. Sparks and fireballs fell.
烟像痛快轻松了一些，翻滚着向上冒。火团下降，在半空中遇到下面的火柱，又狂喜地往上跳跃，炸出无数火花。火团远落，遇到可以燃烧的东西，整个的再点起一把新火，新烟掩住旧火。
The smoke seemed to be lighter, rolling upwards. The fireball descended, met the fire pillar below in mid-air, and jumped up with joy, exploding countless sparks. When the fireball falls far away, and when it encounters something that can burn, a new fire is lit, and the new smoke covers the old fire.
一时变为黑暗，新火冲出了黑烟，与旧火连成一气，处处是火舌、火柱，飞舞、吐动、摇摆、癫狂。忽然哗啦一声，一架房倒下去，火星、焦炭、尘土、白烟一起飞扬，火苗压在下面。
It turned into darkness for a moment. The new fire burst out of black smoke and became one with the old fire. There were tongues of fire and pillars of fire everywhere, flying, spitting, swaying and going crazy. Suddenly there was a crash, and a building fell down. Sparks, coke, dust, and white smoke flew up together, and the flames were suppressed below.
一起在底下往横里吐射，像千百条探头吐舌的火蛇。静寂，静寂，火蛇慢慢的、忍耐的往上翻，绕到上边来，与高处的火接到一处，通明、纯亮，呼呼的响着，要把人的心全照亮了似的。我看着，不。
They spit out all at once, like thousands of fiery snakes protruding their heads and spitting out their tongues. Silence, silence, the fiery snake slowly and patiently turned upward. Go around to the top and meet the fire at a high place. It is bright, pure, and bright, and it sounds like it is lighting up people's hearts. I looked at it, no.
不但看着，我还闻着呢。在种种不同的味道里，我咂摸着，这是那个金匾黑字的绸缎庄，那是那个山西人开的有酒店。由这些味道，我认识了那些不同的火团，轻而高飞的一定是茶叶铺的。
Not only did I look at it, I also smelled it. Amidst all the different flavors, I smacked my lips. This is the silk and satin shop with gold plaques and black characters, and that is the oil shop run by Shaanxi people. From these smells, I recognized the different fireballs. The light and high-flying ones must be from the tea shop.
驰奔黑暗的一定是布店的，这些买卖都不是我的，可是我都认得，闻着他们火葬的气味，看着他们火团的起落，我说不上来心中怎样难过。我看着，闻着，难过，我忘了自己的危险。
Chi Ben and the dark one must be from the cloth shop. None of these businesses are mine, but I recognize them all. Smelling the smell of their cremation and watching the rise and fall of their fireballs, I can't tell you how sad I feel. I looked, smelled, felt sad, and forgot my own danger.
我仿佛是个不懂事的小孩，只顾了看热闹，而忘了别的一切。我的牙打得很响，不是为自己害怕，而是对这凄惨的美丽动了心。回家是没希望了。我不知道街上一共有多少兵。
I seemed like an ignorant child, just watching the fun and forgetting everything else. My teeth were chattering loudly, not because I was afraid, but because I was moved by the strange beauty. There was no hope of returning home. I don't know how many soldiers there are on the street.
可是由各处的火光猜躲起来，大概是热闹的街口都有他们。他们的目的是抢劫，可是顺着手已经烧了这么多铺户，焉知不就棍打腿的杀些人玩玩呢？
But judging from the lights everywhere, they were probably at the busy street corners. Their purpose was to rob, but they had burned so many shops along the way, so why not just beat and kill some people for fun?
我这剪了发的巡警，在他们眼中还不和个臭虫一样，只需一搂枪击就完了，并不费多少事。想到这个，我打算回到区里去，区里我不算远，只需再过一条街就行了。可是连这个也太晚了。
In their eyes, I, a patrolman with a haircut, was no more than a bedbug. He only had to grab the gun and it was over. It didn't take much effort. Thinking of this, I planned to go back to the district. The district is not far from me, I only need to cross another street. However, even this is too late.
当枪声初起的时候，连贫带富家家关了门，街上除了那些横行的兵们，简直成了个死城。极致火一起来，铺户里的人们开始在火营里奔走，胆大一些的立在街旁。
When the gunfire first started, every house, including the poor and the rich, closed its doors. Apart from the rampant soldiers, the streets became a dead city. When the fire started, people in the shops began to run around in the shadow of the fire, and the bolder ones stood by the street.
看着自己的或别人的店铺燃烧，没人敢去救火，可也舍不得走开，只那么一声不出的看着火苗乱窜。胆小一些的呢，争着往胡同里藏躲，三五成群的藏在巷内，不时向街上探探头。
Seeing their own or other people's shops burning, no one dared to put out the fire, but they couldn't bear to walk away and just watched the flames roaring without saying a word. The more timid ones scrambled to hide in the alleys, hiding in small groups in the alleys and peeking their heads into the street from time to time.
没人出声，大家都哆嗦着。火越烧越旺了，枪声慢慢地稀少下来。胡同里的住户仿佛已猜到是怎么一回事，最先是有人开门向外望望，然后有人试着不往街上走。街上只有火光人影。
No one said anything. Everyone was trembling. The fire grew stronger and stronger, and the gunshots gradually became less frequent. The residents in the alley seemed to have guessed what was going on. First, someone opened the door and looked out, and then someone tried to walk to the street. On the street, there were only figures in the light of fire.
没有巡警，被兵们抢过的当铺与首饰店全大敞着门。这样的街市教人们害怕，同时也叫人们胆大起来。一条没有巡警的街正像是没有老师的学房，多么老实的孩子也要闹哄闹哄。
There were no patrols, so the pawn shops and jewelry stores that had been robbed by the soldiers all had their doors open. Such a market makes people fearful, but it also teaches them to be bold. A street without patrolmen is like a school without a teacher. No matter how honest the children are, they have to make a fuss.
一家开门，家家开门，街上人多起来，铺户已有被抢过的了，跟着抢吧。平日谁能想到那些良善守法的人民会去抢劫呢？哼！机会一到，人们立刻显露了原形。说声响。
Every house opens its doors, and there are more people on the street. The shops have already been robbed, so go ahead and rob them. On ordinary days, who would have thought that those kind and law-abiding people would rob? Snort. When the opportunity comes, people immediately reveal their true colors. Say hello.
壮实的小伙子们首先进了当铺、金店、钟表行。男人们回去一趟，第二趟出来已掺加上女人和孩子们。被兵们抢过的铺子自然不必费事，进去随便拿就是了。
The strong young men first entered the pawn shop, gold shop, and watch shop. The men went back once and came out the second time with women and children. Naturally, there is no need to bother with the shop that was robbed by the soldiers. Just go in and take whatever you want.
可是紧跟着那些尚未被抢过的铺户的门也拦不住谁了。粮食店、茶叶铺、百货店，什么东西也是好的，门板一律砸开。我一辈子只看见了这么一回大热闹，男女老幼喊着叫着，狂跑着。
But the doors of the shops that had not yet been robbed could not stop anyone. Food stores, tea shops, department stores, everything is good, the doors will be smashed open. I have only seen such great excitement once in my life. Men, women, old and children, shouting and running wildly.
拥挤着，争吵着，砸门的砸门，喊叫的喊叫，客诈。门板倒下去，一窝蜂似的跑进去，乱挤乱抓，压倒在地的狂嚎，身体利落的往柜台上窜，全红着眼，全拼着命，全奋勇前进，挤成一团，倒成一片。
Crowding, quarreling, banging on doors, shouting, chattering. The door panel fell down, and they ran in like a swarm of swarms, squeezing and grabbing, shouting madly on the ground, and jumping up to the counter neatly, all with red eyes, all fighting for their lives, all moving forward bravely, squeezing into a ball, and falling into one piece.
散走全街，背着、抱着、扛着、掖着，像一片战胜的蚂蚁，昂首疾走，去而复归，虎旗唤子，前呼后应。苦人当然出来了，哼，那中等人家也不甘落后呀。贵重的东西先搬完了，煤米柴炭是第二波。
Take a walk across the street. Carrying it on its back, holding it, carrying it, dragging it, like a field of victorious ants, scurrying away with its head held high, going away and coming back again, calling for its wife and children, answering the calls before and after. Of course the bitter man came out, The middle-class families are not far behind. The valuables were moved first, and the coal, rice, and firewood were moved second.
有的整坛的搬着香油，有的独自扛着2口袋面，瓶子罐子碎了一街，米面撒满了便道：抢啊，抢啊，抢啊！谁都恨自己只长了一双手，谁都嫌自己的腿脚太慢。有的人会推着一坛子白糖。
Some were carrying the whole jar of sesame oil, and some were carrying 2 bags of noodles alone. Bottles and jars were broken all over the street, and rice and noodles were scattered all over the sidewalk. Grab it. Grab it. Grab it. Everyone hates that they only have 1 pair of hands, and everyone thinks that their legs and feet are too slow. Some people can push a jar of sugar.
连人带坛在地上滚，像屎壳郎推着个大粪球。强中自有强中手，人是到处会用脑子的。有人拿出切菜刀来了，立在巷口等着，放下。刀晃了晃，口袋或衣服放下了，安然的，不费力的拿回家去。
The man and the altar were rolling on the ground, like a dung beetle pushing a big ball of dung. The strongest will always have the best, and people use their brains everywhere. Someone took out a kitchen knife and stood at the entrance of the alley waiting. Put it down. The knife shook. Put down your pockets or clothes. Take them home safely and effortlessly.
放下，不灵验，刀下去了，把面口袋砍破，下了一阵小雪，2人滚在一团。过路的急走，捎带着说了句：“打什么？有的是东西。”2位明白过来，立起来向街头跑去。抢啊，抢啊！有的是东西。
Lay down. It didn't work. The knife went down and cut open the dough bag. It snowed for a while, and the 2 of them rolled into a ball. The passerby walked away quickly and said casually, "What are you hitting?" "There are plenty of things." The 2 of them understood, stood up and ran towards the street. Grab, grab. There are lots of things.
我挤在了一群买卖人的中间，藏在黑影里。我并没说什么，他们似乎很明白我的困难，大家一声不出，而紧紧地把我包围住。不要说我还是个巡警，连他们买卖人也不敢抬起头来。
I squeezed into the middle of a group of traders, hiding in the shadows. I didn't say anything. They seemed to understand my difficulties very well. They didn't say a word and surrounded me tightly. Not to mention that I am still a patrolman, even they who buy and sell people dare not raise their heads.
他们无法去保护他们的财产与货物，谁敢出头抵抗谁就是不要命。兵们有枪，人民也有切菜刀呀。是的，他们低着头，好像到怪羞惭似的。他们唯恐和抢劫的人们。
They are unable to protect their property and goods. Anyone who dares to resist will risk his life. The soldiers have guns, and the people also have kitchen knives. Yes, they lowered their heads as if they were ashamed. They are afraid of the people who robbed them.
也就是他们平日的照顾主，对了脸，羞恼成怒，在这没有王法的时候，杀几个买卖人总不算一回事呢。所以他们也保护着我。想想看吧，这一带的居民大概不会不认识我吧。
That is to say, they usually take care of their masters. They are embarrassed and angry. At this time when there is no king's law, killing a few traitors is not the same thing. So, they also protect me. Come to think of it, the residents in this area probably don't know me.
我3天2头的到这里来巡逻，平日他们在墙根撒尿，我都要讨他们的厌，上前干涉，他们怎能不恨恶我呢？现在大家正在兴高采烈地白拿东西，要是遇见我，他们一人给我1砖头。
I come here every 2 days to patrol. On weekdays, when they urinate at the base of the wall, would annoy them and step forward to interfere. How could they not hate me? Now everyone is happily taking things for free. If they meet me, they will each give me a brick.
我也就活不成了。即使他们不认识我，反正我是穿着制服，配着东洋刀呀。在这个局面下，冒而咕咚的出来个巡警，够多么不合适呢？我满可以上前去道歉，说我不该这么冒失。
I won't be able to survive. Even if they don't recognize me, I'm still wearing a uniform and a Japanese sword. In this situation, it is so inappropriate for a patrolman to pop out without warning. I could have gone up and apologized, saying that I shouldn't have been so rash.
他们能白白地饶了我吗？街上忽然清静了一些，便道上的人纷纷往胡同里跑，马路当中走着七零八散的兵，都走得很慢。我摘下帽子，从一个学徒的肩上往外看了一眼，看见一位兵士。
Can they spare me for free? The streets suddenly became quieter, and people on the sidewalk ran into the alley one after another. There were scattered soldiers walking on the road, all walking very slowly. I took off my hat and looked out over the shoulder of an apprentice. Saw a soldier.
手里提着一串东西，像一串螃蟹似的。我能想到那是一串金银的镯子。他身上还有多少东西，不晓得，不过一定有许多硬货，因为他走得很慢。多么自然，多么可羡慕呢！自自然然的。
He was holding a bunch of things in his hand, like a bunch of crabs. I can think of it as a gold and silver bracelet. I don't know how many things he had on him, but he must have a lot of hard stuff because he walked very slowly. How natural, how enviable. Naturally.
提着一串镯子，在马路中心缓缓地走，有稍亮的铺户坐着巨大的火把，给他们照亮了全城。兵过去了，人们又由胡同里钻出来，东西已抢得差不多了，大家开始搬铺户的门板。
Carrying a string of bracelets, they walked slowly in the center of the road. There were brightly lit shops using huge torches, lighting up the whole city for them. After the soldiers passed, people came out of the alley again. Almost all the things had been snatched, and everyone started to move the door panels of the shop.
有的去摘门上的匾额。我在报纸上常看见彻底这2个字，咱们的良民们打抢的时候才真正彻底呢。这时候铺户的人们才有出头喊叫的，救火呀，救火呀，别等着烧尽了呀。
Some went to pick off the plaques on the doors. I often see the word thorough in newspapers. Our good citizens are truly thorough when they fight and rob. At this time, the people in the shop came forward and shouted, "Put out the fire! Put out the fire! Don't wait to burn it out!"
喊得叫人一听见就要落泪。我身旁的人们开始活动，我怎么办呢？他们要是都去救火，剩下我这一个巡警，往哪儿跑呢？我拉住了一个屠户，他托给了我那件满是猪油的大衫。
It's so loud that people will cry when they hear it. People around me started to move. What should I do? If they all go to put out the fire, where will I, the patrolman, go? I caught a butcher. He took off the big shirt that was full of lard to me.
把帽子夹在夹肢窝底下，一手握着佩刀，一手揪着大筋，我擦着墙根逃回区里去。第8段，我没去抢，人家所抢的又不是我的东西，这回事简直可以说和我不相干。可是我看见了。
Put the hat under the leg socket. Holding the saber in one hand and grabbing my lapels with the other, I scraped against the wall and fled back to that area. Paragraph 8. I didn't rob it. What they robbed was not my property. It could be said that this matter had nothing to do with me. But I saw it.
也就明白了。明白了什么？我不会干脆的、恰当的用一半句话说出来。我明白了点什么意思，这点意思叫我几乎改变了点脾气。丢老婆是一件永远忘不了的事，现在他有了伴儿。
That's it. What do you understand? I wouldn't say it simply, appropriately, in half a sentence. I understood something, and it almost changed my temper a little bit. Losing a wife is something that can never be forgotten, but now it has a companion.
我也永远忘不了这次的兵变。丢老婆是我自己的事，只需记在我的心里，用不着把家事国事天下事全拉扯上。这次的变乱是多少万人的事，只要我想一想，我便想到大家，想到全城。
I will never forget this mutiny. Losing my wife is my own business. I just need to keep it in my heart. There is no need to involve all family and national affairs. This incident involved tens of thousands of people. As long as I think about it, I think of everyone and the whole city.
简直的，我可以用这回事去断定许多的大事，就好像报纸上那样谈论这个问题那个问题似的。对了，我找到了一句漂亮的了。这件事叫我看出一点意思，由这点意思我咂摸着许多问题。
It is true that I can use this story to determine many major events, just like the newspapers talk about this issue and that issue. By the way, I found a beautiful sentence. This incident taught me some meaning, and from this meaning I grappled with many questions.
不管别人听得懂这句与否，我可真觉得它不坏。我说过了，自从我的妻潜逃之后，我心中有了个空。经过这回兵变，那个空更大了一些，松松通通的，能容下许多玩意儿。
Regardless of whether others understand this sentence or not, I really don't think it's bad. I have said it before, since my wife absconded, I have had some space in my heart. After this mutiny, the space became larger and loose enough to accommodate many things.
还接着说兵变的事吧，把它说完全了，你也就可以明白我心中的空为什么大起来了。当我回到宿舍的时候，大家还全没睡呢。不睡是当然的，可是大家一点也不显着着急或恐慌。
Let's continue talking about the mutiny. Once I explain it completely, you can understand why the void in my heart has become bigger. When I returned to the dormitory, everyone was still awake. It was natural not to sleep, but we were not obviously anxious or panicked at all.
吸烟的吸烟，喝茶的喝茶，就好像有红白事熬夜那样。我的狼狈的样子，不但没引起大家的同情，倒招得他们直笑。我本排着一肚子话要向大家说，一看这个样子，也就不必再言语了。
Those who smoke smoke, and those who drink tea, just like staying up late to attend events. My embarrassed look not only failed to arouse everyone's sympathy, but also made them laugh. I had a lot of things to say to everyone, but when I saw this, I didn't need to say any more words.
我想去睡，可是被排长给拦住了。别睡，待一会儿，天一亮，咱们全得出去弹压地面。这该轮到我发笑了。街上烧抢到那个样子，并不见一个巡警，等到天亮再去弹压地面，岂不是天大的笑话？
I wanted to go to bed, but the platoon leader stopped me. Don't sleep. Wait a little while. At dawn, we all have to go out and press the ground. It was my turn to laugh. There was no such thing as burning and looting on the street. Wouldn't it be a big joke for a patrolman to wait until dawn before going to suppress the ground?
命令是命令，我只好等到天亮吧。还没到天亮，我已经打听出来，原来高级警官们都预先知道兵变的事儿，可是不便于告诉下级警官和巡警们。这就是说，兵变是警察们管不了的事。
The order is an order. I have to wait until dawn. Before dawn, I had already found out. It turned out that the senior police officers knew about the mutiny in advance, but it was not convenient for them to tell the junior police officers and patrolmen. This means that mutiny is beyond the control of the police.
要变就变吧，下级警官和巡警们呢，夜间糊糊涂涂的照常去巡逻站岗，是生是死随他们去。这个主意够多么活动而毒辣呢！再看巡警们呢，全和我自己一样，听见枪声就往回跑，谁也不傻。
If you want to change, then change it. As for the lower-level police officers and patrolmen, they go to patrol and stand guard as usual at night. Life or death is up to them. This idea is so dynamic and sinister. Looking at the patrolmen, they were all just like me. They ran back when they heard the gunfire. No one was stupid.
这样巡警正好对得起这样警官，自上而下全是瞎打混的当差事，一点不假。虽然很要困，我可是急于想到街上去看看，夜间那一些情景还都在我的心里，我愿白天再去看一眼。
This kind of patrol officer is just right for this kind of police officer. From top to bottom, they are just messing around and working as errands. It's absolutely true. Although I was very sleepy, I was eager to go out and have a look on the streets. The scenes at night were still in my mind, and I wanted to take another look during the day.
好比较比较，教我心中这张画有头有尾。天亮的似乎很慢，也许是我心中太急。天到底慢慢的亮起来，我们排上队。我又要笑，有的人居然把盘起来的辫子梳好了放下来。
It's easy to compare and contrast, so that this painting in my mind has a beginning and an end. The day seems to be dawning very slowly. Maybe I am too impatient. The sky finally got brighter and we lined up. I laugh again. Some people actually comb their braids and let them down.
巡长们也作为没看见，有的人在快要排队的时候，还细细刷了刷制服，用布擦亮了皮鞋。街上有那么大的损失，还有人顾得擦亮了鞋呢。我怎能不笑呢？到了街上，我无论如何也笑不出了。
The inspectors also acted as if they had not seen it. When some people were about to line up, they even brushed their uniforms carefully and polished their leather shoes with a cloth. There was so much damage on the street, but some people even bothered to polish their shoes. How could I not laugh? When I got to the street, I couldn't laugh no matter what.
从前我没真明白过什么叫做惨，这回才真晓得了。天上还有几颗懒得下去的大星，云色在灰白中稍微带出些蓝，清凉暗淡。到处是焦糊的气味，空中游动着一些白烟，铺户全敞着门。
In the past, I didn't really understand what misery meant, but now I really do. There are still a few big stars in the sky that are too lazy to go down. The clouds are slightly blue in the gray, cool and dim. There was a burnt smell everywhere, and some white smoke was swimming in the air. All shops have their doors open.
没有一个整窗子，大人和小徒弟都在门口，或做或立，谁也不出声，也不动手收拾什么，像一群没有主的傻羊。火已经停止住燃烧，可是已被烧残的地方还静静地冒着白烟。
There was not a single window, and both the adults and the young disciples were sitting or standing at the door. No one made a sound or moved to clean up anything, like a group of silly sheep without a master. The fire has stopped burning, but white smoke is still rising quietly from the burned areas.
吐着细小而明亮的火苗，微风一吹，那烧焦的房柱忽然又亮起来，顺着风摆开一些小火气。最初起火的几家已成了几个巨大的焦土堆，山墙没有倒，空空的围抱着几座冒烟的坟头。
Breathing out small, bright flames. When the breeze blew, the charred pillars suddenly lit up again, and some small fire flags were spread out in the wind. The first few houses that caught fire have become several huge piles of scorched earth. The gables have not fallen down, and they are surrounded by several empty tombs that are smoking.
最后燃烧的地方还都立着，墙与前脸全没塌倒，可是门窗一律烧掉，成了些黑洞。有一只猫还在这样的一家门口坐着，被烟熏得连连打嚏，可是还不肯离开那里。
The last burned areas were still standing, and the walls in front had not collapsed, but the doors and windows were all burned out, leaving some black holes. There was a cat sitting in front of such a house, sneezing repeatedly due to the smoke, but still refused to leave.
平日最热闹体面的街口变成了一片焦木头破瓦，成群的焦柱静静地立着，东西南北都是这样，懒懒的，无聊的，欲罢不能地冒着些烟。地狱什么样？我不知道，大概这就差不多吧。我一低头。
The most lively and respectable street intersection on weekdays has turned into a piece of charred wood and broken tiles. Groups of scorched pillars stand quietly, east, west, north and south. They are lazy, boring, and can't stop smoking. What is hell like? I have no idea. That's probably about it. I lowered my head.
便想起往日街头上的景象，那些体面的铺户是多么华丽可爱。一抬头，眼前只剩了焦糊的那么一片。心中记得的景象与眼前看见的忽然碰到一处，碰出一些泪来。这就叫做惨吧。
I remembered the scene on the streets in the past, how gorgeous and lovely those decent shops were. When I looked up, there was only a burnt patch in front of me. The scene I remembered in my heart suddenly collided with what I saw before my eyes, causing me to shed some tears. This is called miserable, right?
火场外有许多买卖人与学徒们呆呆地立着，手揣在袖里，对着残火发冷。遇见我们，他们只淡淡地看那么一眼，没有任何别的表示，仿佛他们已绝了望，用不着再动什么感情。
Outside the fire scene, many traders and apprentices stood blankly, with their hands in their sleeves, staring at the remaining fire. When they met us, they only gave us a faint look without any other expression, as if they were hopeless and no longer needed to express any emotion.
过了这一带火场，铺户全敞着门窗，没有一点动静，便道上马路上全是破碎的东西，比那火场更加凄惨。火场的样子叫人一看便知道那是遭了火灾。
After passing the fire scene in this area, all the shops had their doors and windows open, and there was no movement at all. The sidewalk and the road were full of broken things, which was even more miserable than the fire scene. The appearance of the fire scene made it obvious at a glance that it was a fire.
这一片破碎竞技的铺户与东西使人莫名其妙，不晓得为什么繁华的街市会忽然变成绝大的垃圾堆。我就被派在这里站岗，我的责任是什么呢？不知道。我规规矩矩地立在那里。
This fragmented and silent area of shops and things is puzzling. I don't know why the bustling market suddenly turned into a huge garbage dump. I was assigned to stand guard here. What is my responsibility? Have no idea. I stood there calmly.
连动也不敢动，这破烂的街市仿佛有一股凉气把我吸住。一些妇女和小孩子还在铺子外边拾取一些破东西，铺子的人不作声，我也不便去管。我觉得站在那里简直是多此一举。
I didn't even dare to move. This shabby street seemed to have a cold air sucking me in. Some women and children were still picking up some broken things outside the shop. The people in the shop were silent, so I couldn't pay attention to them. I felt that standing there was simply unnecessary.
太阳出来，街上显着更破了，像阳光下的叫化子那么丑陋。地上的每一个小物件都露出颜色与形状来，花哨的奇怪，杂乱的使人憋气。没有一个卖菜的，赶早市的，卖早点心的。
When the sun came out, the streets became noticeably more shabby, as ugly as a beggar in the sun. Every small object on the ground has its own color and shape. It's so fancy and strange that it's so messy that it's suffocating. There is no one selling vegetables, rushing to the morning market, or selling breakfast snacks.
没有一辆洋车，一匹马，整个的街上就是那么破破烂烂，冷冷清清，连刚出来的太阳都仿佛垂头丧气，不大起劲，空空洞洞地悬在天上。一个邮差从我身旁走过去，低着头。
There was not a single foreign car or a horse, and the entire street was so shabby and deserted. Even the sun that had just risen seemed to be downcast and unmotivated, hanging hollow in the sky. A postman walked past me, his head lowered.
身后扯着一条长影，我哆嗦了一下。待了一会儿，段上的巡官下来了，他身后跟着一名巡警，两人都非常的精神，在马路当中当当的走，好像得了什么喜事似的。巡官告诉我
There is a long shadow behind him. I shivered. After staying for a while, the inspector from Duanshang came down. Behind him was a patrolman. Both of them were walking in the middle of the road in high spirits, as if they had received some happy event. The inspector told me.
注意街上的秩序，大令已经下来了。我行了礼，莫名其妙他说的是什么？那名巡警似乎看出来我的傻气，低声找补了一句：“赶开那些拾东西的，大令下来了。”我没心思去执行。
Pay attention to the order on the street. The order has come down. I saluted, but I couldn't figure out what he said. The patrolman seemed to see my stupidity and added in a low voice, "Get rid of those who are picking up things. The order is down." I don't have the heart to execute it.
可是不敢公然违抗命令。我走到铺户外边，向那些妇人孩子们摆了摆手，我说不出话来。一边这样维持秩序，我一边往猪肉铺走，为师说一声：“那件大褂等我给洗好了再送来。”
But I didn't dare to openly disobey the order. I walked outside the shop and waved to the women and children. I was speechless. While maintaining order in this way, I walked to the pork shop, just to say that the coat would be delivered to me after it was washed.
屠户在小肉铺门口坐着呢， 我没想到这样的小铺也会遭抢，可是竟自成个空铺子了。我说了句什么，屠户连头也没抬。我往铺子里望了望，大小肉墩子、肉钩子、钱筒子、油盘。
The butcher was sitting in front of the butcher's shop. I didn't expect that such a small shop would be robbed, but it turned out to be an empty shop. I said something, but the butcher didn't even raise his head. I looked into the shop, large and small meat dumplings, meat hooks, money tubes, and oil dishes.
凡是能拿走的吧，都被人家拿走了，只剩下了柜台和架肉案子的土台。我又回到岗位，我的头痛的要裂。要是老教我看着这条街，我知道不久就会疯了。大令真到了，12名兵，一个长官。
Everything that could be taken away was taken away, leaving only the counter and the earthen platform. Everything that could be taken away was taken away, leaving only the counter and the earthen platform where the meat cases were placed. I returned to my post with a splitting headache.
捧着就地正法的令牌，枪拳上着刺刀。哦，原来还是辫子兵啊！他们抢完烧完，再出来就地正法别人，什么玩意儿呢？我还得给令牌行礼啊！行完礼，我极快往四下里看。
Holding the token of execution on the spot, all guns were equipped with bayonets. Vomit. It turns out he is still a braided soldier. After they looted and burned them, they came out to execute others on the spot. What kind of thing was this? I still have to salute the token. After saluting, I quickly looked around.
看看还有没有捡拾零碎东西的人，好警告他们一声。连屠户的木墩都搬了走的人民，本来值不得同情，可是被辫子兵们杀掉，似乎又太冤枉。说时迟，那时快。
Check to see if anyone else is picking up bits and pieces so you can give them a warning. The people who had even moved the butcher's wooden pillars were not worthy of sympathy, but being killed by the braided soldiers seemed too unjust. It's too late to say it, but it's soon.
一个14、15岁的男孩子没有走脱，枪子围住了他，他手中还攥住一块木板与一只旧鞋。拉倒了，大刀亮出来，孩子喊了声妈。血溅出去多远，身子还抽动，头已悬在电线杆子上。
A boy of 14 or 15 years old did not escape. Spears surrounded him, and he still held a piece of wood and an old shoe in his hands. It was pulled down, the machete was revealed, and the child shouted, "Mom!" The blood spattered far away, the body was still twitching, and the head was already hanging on the telephone pole.
我连吐口唾沫的力量都没有了，天地都在我眼前翻转。杀人，看见过，我不怕。我是不平，我是不平。请记住这句，这就是前面所说过的，我看出一点意思的那点意思。想想看。
I didn't even have the strength to spit, and the world turned upside down before my eyes. I have seen murder, but I am not afraid. I am unfair. I am unfair. Please remember this sentence. This is what I said before. I see something interesting. Think about it. 把整串的金银镯子提回营去，而后出来杀个拾了双破鞋的孩子，还说就地正法呢。天下要有这个法，我惩罚的亲娘祖奶奶。请原谅我的嘴这么野，但是这种事恐怕也不大文明吧。事后 He took the whole bunch of gold and silver bracelets back to the camp, then came out to kill a child who had lost a pair of broken shoes, and said he was rectifying the F.A. on the spot. The world must have this F.A., my mother-in-law times F.A. Please forgive me for being so wild, but this kind of thing is probably not very civilized, right? Afterwards.
我听人家说，这次的兵变是有什么政治作用，所以打抢的兵在事后还出来弹压地面，连头带尾，一切都是预先想好了的。什么政治作用？咱不懂，咱只想在骂街。可是就凭咱这么个臭脚寻，
I heard people say that this mutiny had some political effect, so the soldiers who fought and looted came out to suppress the ground afterwards. From beginning to end, everything was planned in advance. What political role? We don't understand. We just want to curse again. However, just because we are such a stinky foot patrol.
骂街又有什么用呢？第9段，简直我不愿再提这回事了。不过为圆上场面，我总得把问题提出来放在这里。比我聪明的人有的是，让他们自己去细咂摸吧。怎么会政治作用？
What's the use of swearing? Paragraph 9. I simply don't want to mention this anymore, but to keep things in perspective, I have to raise the issue. If I raise it here, there are plenty of people smarter than me, so let them figure it out for themselves. How can it be political?
里有兵变，若是有意叫兵来抢，当初干嘛要巡警？巡警到底是干嘛的？是只管在街上小便的，而不管抢铺子的吗？安善良民要是会打抢，巡警干嘛去专拿小偷？人们到底愿意要巡警不愿意？
Is there a mutiny? If there was an intention to recruit soldiers to rob, why did we need to patrol the area in the first place? What exactly does a patrol officer do? Are they just urinating on the street and not caring about grabbing shops? If the people of Anshan know how to rob, why would the patrol officers only hunt for thieves? Do people want patrol officers or not?
不愿意吧？为什么刚要打架就喊巡警，而且月往外拿警捐？愿意吧？为什么又喜欢巡警不管事，要抢的好去抢，被抢的也一声不言语？好吧，我只提出这么几个样子来吧，问题还多得很呢。
Don't want to. Why do you call the police when a fight is about to start? And why do you go out to collect police donations every month? Do it. Why do you like the patrol police to be indifferent? If you want to rob, you will rob, but if you are robbed, you will not say a word. Well, I will only propose a few looks. There are still many questions.
我既不能去解决，也就不便再瞎叨叨了。这几个样子就真够叫我糊涂的了，怎想怎不对，怎摸不清哪里是哪里，一会儿他有头有尾，一会儿又没头没尾，我这点聪明不够想这么大的事的。
Since I can't solve it, I can't talk about it anymore. These appearances are enough to make me confused. Why do I think wrongly? Why can't I figure out where is where? Sometimes it has a beginning and a tail, and sometimes it has no beginning and no tail. I'm not smart enough to think about such a big thing.
我只能说这么一句老话，这个人民连官、兵丁、巡警、带安善的良民都不够本，所以我心中的扣就更大了。在这群不够本的人们里活着，就是个对付劲儿，别讲究什么真事儿。
I can only say this old saying, this people, even the officials, soldiers, patrols, and good people who lead peace and kindness are not enough. Therefore, the space in my heart is even bigger. Living among this group of people who are not good enough is just a struggle. Don't pay attention to anything real.
我算是看明白了，还有个好字眼儿，别忘下汤氏。谁要是跟我一样想不出什么好办法来，顶好用这个话 又现成又恰当，而且可以不致把自己绕糊涂了。汤氏完了。
I finally understand. There is also a good word, don't forget to add, soup thing. If anyone is like me and can't think of any good solutions, it's best to use these words. It's ready-made and appropriate, and it won't make you confused. The soup thing is over.
如若还嫌稍微凸一点呢，再补上真他妈的就挺合适。
If you still think it's a little bald, it's quite appropriate.